This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you've got a comment, go ahead and send it to me. Box 13 at greatdetectives.net. Be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. Before we do get started with today's program, I do want to encourage you to check out the weekly articles we're posting at greatdetectives.net. This past week, we begun a new series, counting down the 5 best detective shows by network, beginning with detective shows that crossed multiple networks. And other recent articles have included reviews of the new Father Brown radio show, a review of a brand new adaptation of Broadway Is My Beat, made by Gregory Friedkin, the son of David Friedkin, who wrote the original. These articles are also available to you, come automatically to your Kindle by purchasing them from the Amazon store, and you get 2 weeks free. Alright, well, let's get into today's episode of the Abbotts, The Gentleman in the Nile Green Suit.
After all, receiving presents when you go on a romantic cruise is wonderful. But what if someone gives you and your husband a corpse?
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Mandel Kramer as Pat and Jean Abbott, the nationally popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. NBC invites you to join Pat and Jean each week at this time for an exciting recorded adventure in romance and crime. Here is Jean Abbott to set the stage for tonight's Puzzle in Murder.
Pat and I decided to get away from it all, as if you ever do when your husband's a private detective. Anyway, the boat had sailed, and Pat and I brushed off the confetti and headed for our cabin.
This way to the Abbott's cabin, ma'am.
Oh, Pat. But it's sensational.
Mm-hmm.
Must be very wealthy people, these Abbotts.
Now I'll just close this door. Now, me proud beauty, now that I have you alone in me cabin, maybe I ought to grow a mustache so I could twirl it now and then, huh, Jean?
No, don't grow a mustache, Mr. Abbott. I kind of like you the way you are. Oh, Pat, everyone's been so sweet I could cry. Look at all those presents. 4 Bon Voyage baskets, 6 bottles of champagne, and those roses. The cabin smells like Shangri-La. Where are you going, dear?
Take a shower and dress for dinner.
Oh, wear the white dinner jacket tonight, Pat, so I can be very proud of my handsome husband.
Okay, darling, but I hate the darn thing. I always feel like a head waiter. We have a present that we didn't know about, Jean.
Really? Oh, that's marvelous. Don't tell me. Now, let me guess. Bath salts?
No.
Orchid?
Mm-mm.
Well, what is it, Pat?
A dead body.
Oh, isn't that nice? What did you say?
There's a guy in there taking a shower, but he's not singing.
Now, Pat Abbott, if you're clowning around... Now, let me...
You stay out of there, darling. It's not a very pretty sight for starting a vacation. Somebody split his head open with a fire hatchet.
Our second honeymoon got off to a delightful start with champagne, roses, and a cadaver. We found a horrible, mangled body in our cabin. Pat called the captain. I thought all ship's captains looked and talked like Charles Lawton, but this chap was very simple. Not at all dramatic, but abrupt. Almost too abrupt. After quite a few questions...
Sorry this happened, Mr. Abbott. I know you're a detective, but I'll assume complete charge of this case.
Well, that's all right with me. I'm on a vacation.
I'll arrange for you to use another cabin.
You know who the dead man is, Captain?
Yes?
You mind telling me?
He was a member of the French secret police.
Oh? Any idea who killed him?
I told you I was taking charge of this case.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just professional curiosity.
Pat, let's get out of here.
Good idea, Mrs. Abbott. You'll feel better, and I can get to work.
You're sure I can't help you, Captain?
Absolutely. What happened is quite obvious. The dead man's fully clothed. He was killed near this door. The body was pushed into the tub to hide it. Of course, there aren't any clues at all about the killer yet.
Oh, aren't there? Captain, if you'd have looked at the ashtrays in this cabin, you'd have noticed 3 brands of cigarettes had been smoked.
What?
Now, you use a pipe. My wife and I might smoke 2 brands, but how about the third one? It might be interesting to know whose cigarette that was, don't you think?
Well, I'd have noticed that eventually. I just...
Well, I'm sorry to have wasted so much time for you, Captain. This is your case, isn't it?
The captain made us promise not to mention a word about the murder to anyone and to behave as though this was a very jolly trip, which indeed it turned out to be. The trip was to Martinique in the French West Indies. There were some passengers who'd crossed from Cherbourg to New York and then gone south. While Pat was playing shuffleboard, I strolled into the cocktail lounge. I met a very dapper little gentleman. He was almost a Hollywood idea of a comic Frenchman. Small, delicate, with a mustache. Very graceful airs about him. He wore a loud Nile green suit and a yellow ascot tie. Very cheesy. We were at the bar.
Madame Abbott, to me you are absolute perfection, except for one thing.
Oh, what's that, Pierre?
You are married. To my eternal regret. Ah, comme c'est dommage. I shall never know why it is that all of the exquisite women I meet are married. It is very depressing.
Well, don't let it get you down. You're like my husband.
Well, he may be the most charming gentleman in the world, but for taking you to himself, I detest him.
Pierre, tell me, what business have you run away from for this cruise?
I have run away from the East Indies, madame, the export business. I have come to forget all of my troubles. Of course, confidentially, it is not easy to forget the troubles of the world, even on this boat.
What about this boat?
You see the gentleman at the other end of the lounge?
Uh-huh.
He is Jacques Fontaine. You have heard about Monsieur Fontaine?
No, I met him for a second. But
he is what the writer Pertinax, André Géraud, would call a gravedigger of France. He was a collaborationist. At first, he worked with the coiffeur. Now he is involved in the mess in Indonesia, on the wrong side again.
Really?
Yes.
Well, my husband and I thought he was very pleasant.
Every night I pray that Monsieur Fontaine will not live to see the morning. But I am a timid gentleman. If I only had the courage to,
The courage to what?
I am just dreaming, madame.
Enjoying yourself, Jane?
Oh, hello, Pat. Pierre Duchamp, my husband, Mr. Abbott.
Enchanté, monsieur. I hope you will pardon me for monopolizing your wife's time. She is so delightful. I stole a few minutes of conversation with her.
Oh, it's all right.
Now, if you will excuse me, I shall leave you two very happy people alone. A young couple in love, eh? Ah, c'est magnifique.
Oh, don't run off, Pierre.
Yes, madame, I go. But we shall see more of each other, no? My cabin is number 5 on A deck. We are neighbors, right? Au revoir now. Bientôt.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, really, Pat? You didn't have to glare at the poor little fellow.
Jean, why is it that if I leave you alone for more than 60 seconds, the wolf pack comes out howling?
Don't be stuffy.
He is up to no good. With all that dancing around and bowing and scraping, he's just a wolf. And you encourage him, pal. Oh, don't run off, Pierre.
Will you stop acting like a jealous little boy? Now, Oscar Wilde once said that
Suppose
jealousy
we skip the quotations,
Pat, I found out something, and it might be helpful.
What is it?
Pierre loathes that chubby man we met, Jacques Fontaine, the one at the other end of the bar.
Because he says Fontaine's on the wrong side in Asia?
Now, how did you know?
Scuttlebutt.
Well,
A lot
Pierre
of hep
says...
Washington columnists say that Fontaine is innocent. They say all this talk about his being a traitor is just a lot of French pastry. We'll get a chance to judge for ourselves, darling.
Why?
In the mirror, he's coming over. Now, if you start gushing over him the way you did over Pierre...
Pat, Voltaire once said that the monster of jealousy...
Don't quote at me. I can't stand people who do that. Hello, Mr. Fontaine.
Monsieur Abbott, Madame Abbott, may I join you? We didn't have much of an opportunity to chat when we first met.
Oh, sit down, Mr. Fontaine. We'd be delighted. Have you just come from France?
Mary, yes.
Did you, have any trouble getting out of the country?
Oh, no. Why should I?
Just asking. Europe's not exactly a playground these days.
Oh, I have been made the victim of cheap political gossip, Mr. Abbott.
Oh?
And you have been listening to it. And you have believed it.
Oh, I didn't say that.
I am on the side of democracy in French Indonesia.
Of course, your story has been corroborated, Mr. Fontaine.
No, that is impossible. The only witnesses I have
Yes?
were killed.
After a few minutes, the conversation changed, and Pat lost interest. At least he seemed to. Actually, I knew he was anxious to prowl around the ship. He left me with Fontaine and went back to our cabin.
Oh,
Aren't you in the wrong cabin, ma'am?
You are Monsieur Abbott?
Yes. You know, I'm beginning to wonder what makes me so popular. We keep having visitors in here.
Please forgive me. I'm Marie Fontaine.
Fontaine?
Yes, I saw you in the lounge before. You were speaking to my father.
Well?
It is very rude, but I wanted to speak to you. I was waiting in the hallway, hoping you would come, but then I saw a man's shadow. Someone was watching me, following me. He seemed to be just around the turn toward the exit. I was frightened. I ran into your cabin to be safe. I waited for you here.
Miss Fontaine, what's this all about? Why should anyone follow you? And why do you want to speak to me?
It is about my father. You know, they say he is a traitor to France, but he is innocent, Mr. Abbott. He is innocent. And you are a famous detective. You can help us. Secret agents, they follow him. He will be killed. He will be killed.
Now, Marie, just take it easy now. I'll do whatever I can.
Oh, you will? Oh, but I do not have any money. I have nothing to offer you.
That's all right. You just forget that. Just relax.
Oh, Mr. Abbott, I knew you would help me. You are a darling, a darling.
Now, Marie, please.
Oh, your
now, look,
name.
Marie, please.
Oh, look out,
monsieur.
fellows. Here come the cops.
Oh, Jean, come in, Jean. This is.
Oh, this must be your wife. Oh, c'est drôle.
Yes. Say droll.
Shall I turn on the air conditioning, Pat? You look overheated.
Well, no, darling.
I was thanking your husband, Mrs. Abbott. I am Marie Fontaine. He's going to cooperate with me.
Going to. My dear Miss Fontaine, he is cooperating.
Oh, I'm sorry if you misunderstand. I shall leave.
I'd better see you to your cabin, Miss Fontaine. She's not safe going around on the ship alone, Jean.
Now, where have I heard that one before?
Jean, on the subject of jealousy, George Bernard Shaw said...
While I cooled off in our room, Pat escorted Marie back to her cabin, very conscious of the fact that a killer was at large who might not have played his last card.
This is my cabin, number 3.
3. Didn't Pierre say that he had number 5 on this deck?
Ah, yes, his cabin is next to mine. The little man in the green suit. I do not trust him. He makes me very nervous.
Is there a connecting door between your 2 cabins?
Yes, there is, but I keep it locked. Pierre behaved like a harmless pigeon, but I think that he is a wicked vulture.
You and me both.
I shall be quite safe if I stay in my cabin. Thank you for bringing me here, Mr. Abbott. I'm sorry if I upset your wife.
Good night, Marie.
Oh, confidentially.
Yes?
I'm not really sorry. I like kissing you. You are the kind of man for whom a woman would be glad to take risks. You are...
Good night, Marie. Say, Drew.
Pat? Coming to bed?
No, not yet, darling. I want to visit Mr. Fontaine.
Darling, he didn't kill that secret agent.
Didn't he?
I think Pierre did. The man in the green suit is a phony, if you ask me. You agree, Pat?
Well, I'll tell you more about it when I come back.
You got a clue?
Mm-hmm. I want to talk to the steward on A deck.
Oh, I'll come with you.
No, you'll stay here.
I'll come with you.
You'll stay here.
I'll scream. I'll pull the fire alarm. I'll break the door down.
Oh, I love women. Here we are. This is Fontaine's cabin. I'll knock.
Monsieur Abbott.
Pat, he's been stabbed. He's falling.
I'll get him. Hold him up.
Oh, dear.
Mr. Fontaine, try to speak to us. Tell me what happened. Who was it? Who was it? He's checked out. I'll call the captain. Just put the body on the sofa. Hello, this is Pat Abbott. May I speak to the captain, please? It's urgent. Captain, this is Pat Abbott. Come on down to number 8 on B deck. Somebody's killed Fontaine.
They seem to have done quite a job on Fontaine, didn't they?
Captain, when that secret agent died, did you get any ideas about the case?
We went over every detail. I found nothing.
You sure you didn't overlook something?
I resent the implication, Mr. Abbott.
Look, isn't it a bit late for all this studied formality?
Mr. Abbott, you keep your professional nose out of this, or you'll be awfully sorry you didn't.
Look, Pat. Look what I found. This piece of yellow cloth.
Let me see that.
It's from Pierre's tie, isn't it?
Could be.
Oh, 24 men on this ship are wearing yellow ties. I've seen them.
Yes, but Pierre kept talking about having the courage to...
Go on, Mrs. Abbott. Go on.
Oh,
confound it. Now what?
We raced to the top deck. It was pitch black up there. The captain shouted commands. Long fingers of light swept the water.
Anybody see him? Anybody see him? Get that boat down! Faster! Faster! Up to it!
Pat,
Yes.
I'll bet Pierre jumped off. He said he just needed courage, that's all. He stabbed Fontaine and then he went over. He committed suicide. Oh, they'll never find him in that black water.
You've solved this pretty quickly, haven't you, chum?
Bring that light more to the left. The left! Swing it over! That's it! Binoculars! Get my binoculars! Come on! Come on!
search was fruitless. After hours of hunting desperately and sailing around in circles, the captain gave up. Finally, we sailed ahead. Pat and I went to see Marie.
It is no use. My father is dead. He's dead. Oh, if I could have put my hands on that Pierre, that murderer.
He's paid for it, Marie. He's done away with himself.
Pierre died too easily, too quickly. He should have died like the dirty beast that he was.
All this hysteria won't do you any good, Marie.
Pat, I wonder what to do about that note.
What note, madame?
Well, yesterday when we were alone, your father gave me a note, Marie. He asked me to give it to the French embassy. Your father said it was terribly important.
Oh, what was in it?
I don't know. It was sealed. Your father asked me not to open it. He said I should see that it goes directly to the French government and to no one else.
I will be glad to bring it to them. I will be proud.
Now, Marie, dear, I do trust you, but...
I think Jean had better do what your father said, Marie. We'll take it to the French embassy.
Yes, I am sorry for asking. Forgive me. Everything must be done just as my father said.
Oh, I'm feeling better, Marie.
Oh, yes, Captain. Thank you.
Making any progress, Captain? Get at the truth yet?
No, not yet.
Look, maybe
Mind your own business, Abbott. Now, you're supposed to be on a vacation, remember? I'll work this out in my own good time and in my own way.
Later, Pat went for another one of his strolls around the deck. As I watched him disappear with that long, casual western gait of his, I went back into our cabin alone. One second.
Good evening, Madame Abbott.
Pierre, it's you, but...
I am supposed to be at the bottom of the ocean, eh? Yes, sorry to disappoint you. Shut the door or I will use this gun.
But you didn't commit suicide. But you did kill Fontaine, didn't you?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did.
And that agent of the Sûreté?
Yes. You knew too much about me. You have a note, Madame Abbott, from Monsieur Fontaine. I will take it, please.
I am not going to give it to you.
But now, my dear, you must have learned by this time that human life has very little value to me. I have done away with two people. I could so easily make it a third. Give me that note, Madame Abbott.
Get out of here, Pierre.
I want that note. I shall wait exactly 10 seconds for you to hand it over. Then I shall kill you.
You don't frighten me at all, Pierre.
2 seconds have gone by. I shall wait 10, as I said. Then I shall get you out of the way.
The shots would be heard and you'd be caught. You haven't much of a chance anyway. You'll be seen no matter what you do. You're finished, Pierre.
Odd that you should be willing to die for that little piece of paper. Surely it is not that important. When my watch comes to the 10th second, I shall fire. 8 seconds. 9 seconds.
Drop that gun, Pierre.
Abbott!
Duck, Jean.
Pat, you missed him. You hit the mirror.
You hurt, darling?
No, but there he goes, Pat, down the hallway. Well, go ahead, you... Pat, what are you standing there for?
Just want to kill time, darling. I missed him purposely.
You what?
Now, I want to give him a chance to get back to his cabin. I don't want to grab him right now.
Well, of all the... I thought...
That it was all over? That all I had to do was catch Pierre? No, darling. You've been oversimplifying this deal ever since the cards were out. He's had enough time now. Come on.
Pat, be careful.
Don't follow me.
I certainly will.
Wait now. Easy now. Round this turn.
There he is. Way down the hall. Mm-hmm. You see him? He's looking around for you. Now he's going into his cabin. There he goes.
Good. Come on. First, I'll just have a look in here.
Oh, but that's Marie's cabin.
Of course it is. Fine, it's empty. Now make sure that connecting door is locked. Yes, it is. All right, now, come out here in the hallway. That's it. Now we're going to play some games. You got a cigarette?
A cigarette? Now?
Sure.
Oh, Pat Abbott.
Come on. Atta girl, now give me a light.
Oh, what in the world?
I'm going to blow some smoke through the keyhole in Pierre's cabin. When I do, you scream fire.
Oh, now, Pat, I can't.
Come on, start screaming.
Fire! 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 Where is it? What is the matter? Marie!
Stand right there, Marie.
What?
I missed you before on purpose, but this time I'm playing for keeps.
Where's...
Pierre? There isn't any Pierre. Is there, Marie? There never was any Pierre. Was there, Marie?
You rotten...
Come on, talk up.
Yes, you're right.
You created Pierre, Marie. Yes, you played the part of two people. You were Pierre with the help of a wig, a mustache, a green suit, and a slight change in your voice.
No, you
I said
cannot.
stand still. Look in that cabin, Jean.
No. It will not be necessary. The disguise is in there.
Who was Fontaine, Marie? I said who was...
He was my husband. He disowned me. He despised me. He would not have anything to do with me. He was very wealthy. He was not a collaborator. He gave money to the French resistance, to a certain Pierre Duchamp.
You killed the real Pierre then, didn't you?
Yes, in Paris, to get the fortune my husband had given him. Then I became Pierre myself.
You followed your husband to the boat. You took a cabin. He must have pleaded with you to leave him alone, but you wouldn't. A French secret agent caught up with you. So you grabbed a small fire hatchet and killed him. You built up the story about your husband's being a traitor. You built Pierre as a patriot. You stabbed your husband, then you wanted us to think that Pierre had knocked him off and jumped the boat. What'd you throw into the water, a packing box?
Please, I cannot talk anymore. I'm tired. Take me to the captain. I will not give you any more trouble.
The money you got by killing the real Pierre wasn't enough, was it? You wanted to inherit everything your husband had, too.
May we go now, please? Whatever you do not know must be in that note that my husband left.
All right, start walking. That ladder goes to the top deck, to the captain's headquarters.
Yes, I will. This all happened so fast.
Pat, take her arm. I think she's ill.
May I please have your arm?
Oh! Biting, eh?
You'll never take me.
And scratching,
There
too.
you are. You're not going to...
All right, then I'll just carry you to the brig.
No,
Up you go.
Stop it. No.
Oh, see what I mean, Gene? I love women.
After Pat had turned that tigress over to the captain, we had dinner. We danced. We went up on deck to begin our romantic cruise again. Pat, how'd you know Marie was also Pierre?
Well, that was easy, darling. First of all, I never saw them together at the same time. Now, that was just a vague notion, so I asked the steward on A deck to do a favor for me.
Oh?
He showed me the cigarettes that he'd emptied out of the ashtrays in Pierre's cabin. Every one of them had lipstick on the tip.
And if you weren't sure then, you must have been later. I noticed Marie was the only person we told about the note. But a few minutes later, Pierre came in and asked for it. Oh, I'll bet the captain's hopping mad. He was hoping to solve the case without you. The arrogant so-and-so.
He isn't half as mad as I am. It's a fine second honeymoon this is.
Pat,
Hmm?
I was just thinking.
Yes, dear?
Well, if the boat sank,
If the boat sank.
and we were marooned on a desert island for the rest of our lives, what would you do?
I don't know. Spend most of the time...
Doing what?
This? I told you, darling. I love women.
Moral of the story. I made one mistake that you can benefit by if you're planning a cruise. Please don't go on a streamlined luxury ship. Go on a very small, dangerous boat that's liable to be shipwrecked
Here's some lovely private islands.
The National Broadcasting Company has presented The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Mandel Kramer as those nationally popular personalities of detective fiction, Pat and Jean Abbott, created by Francis Crane.
Adventures of the Abbotts has come to you through the worldwide facilities of the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Welcome back. Well, I have to admit, the solution to this particular crime surprised me. And I think they did a great job of making it have a great twist and plenty of excitement. This is another one of those episodes that makes me a little sad that The Adventures of the Abbotts came so late in the golden age of radio, 5 or 6 years earlier, and this would have been a hit. Though I do have to say, this is their second trip on a cruise in, I think, the past 8 weeks. Maybe Pat Abbott's the world's most expensive private investigator. Well, now we turn to listener comments and feedback. Got feedback from H.D. Cat, who writes, "This latest update added multitasking and a few other nice touches. I love it now." Well, thanks so much for the comment, and I'm glad you enjoy the update. 1.92, the latest version of the Great Detectives app, was meant to make it work for the iPad. And I definitely understand on the iPad, you want that multitasking capability. So now it is available for your iPod Touch, your iPhone, your iPad, and your Android phone. Thanks to the help of our partners over at Wizard Media. And then we have a couple comments on Podcast Alley. Rakisha, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that name right, says, "I am 38 years old, and I've been a fan of radio drama since I was about 15, when I used to listen to repeats on AM radio. Actually, it might have started earlier when I was a little girl and my grandmother would regale us with tales of her youth, like Life Without a TV and listening to dramas on the radio. That and podcasts by comedian Larry Miller reminded me how much I love old radio detective stories. Thank you for making them into podcasts." Well, thanks a lot, Rakisha, and appreciate you listening out there. And then another comment, just the best OTR podcast. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody's comments and support. We will be back tomorrow with Nero Wolfe. Before we do get started with today's episode, I want to encourage you, if you've not already, to check out Audible. Audible brings you tens of thousands of audiobooks and radio plays, including the newly released plays from the Colonial Radio Theater, as well as some of the BBC Radio 4 dramatizations of Doctor Who, Poirot, Miss Marple, and much more. Plus, if you have some nonfiction reading that you've just not been able to get to, it can be helpful to have this right where you need it on an audiobook. You can try Audible out free and get a free audiobook. Go to audibletrial.com/greatdetectives. That's audibletrial.com/greatdetectives. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of Nero Wolfe, A Slight Case of Perjury.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ringing of that phone bell brings you mystery, adventure.
Nero Wolfe's office, Archie Goodwin speaking. Just a moment, please. Hey, boss, Mr. Tom Wilcox wants an appointment. How about 1 o'clock?
Archie, no appointments today. I intend to pot some dendrobium offsets.
1 o'clock will be fine, Mr. Wilcox.
See the Tom Wilcox who was acquitted yesterday of the murder of that singer, Keith Hansen?
Mr. Wilcox, are you the Tom Wilcox who... Oh, you are. I see.
What does he want with me?
Mr. Wilcox, why do you seek Mr. Wolfe's services? I see. Well, our fee is $1,000 with a retainer of $500, okay? Oh, yes, Mr. Wolfe will see you. What's that? Hey, what was that? Hey, Mr. Wilcox.
Archie, stop shouting, hey.
He whispered someone was at the window. Then I heard a shot, and he dropped the phone. Boss, I'm afraid we've just lost a client.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that renowned genius who is the bulkiest, balkiest, most ponderous, and most brilliant detective in the world. Yes, none other than that chairborne mass of unpredictable intellect, Nero Wolfe, created by Rex Stout, and brought to you in a new series of adventures over this NBC network in the person of Mr. Sidney Greenstreet.
This episode is one Nero Wolfe refers to as a slight case of perjury. It all started with a phone call from Tom Wilcox and the ensuing shot, which I was sure had brought our newfound income to an early end. Anyway, there was the shot and... Hello? Mr. Wilcox? Hello? Well, boss, I've certainly waited long enough for him to come back to the phone. We may have just lost a nice bankroll.
Nonsense, Archie. Other clients will rescue us. Now for a cold bottle of beer, Archie.
We're almost out of beer. I better get over there and see what happened to Mr. Wilcox.
The beer first.
Nero Wolfe's office, Archie Goodwin speaking. Oh, Wilcox, you all right? Well, was that a shot? It was, huh? I'm glad it missed.
Tell him to come right over here.
Yeah, you dug the slug out of the wall. Well, come right over. Boss, the police never found the gun that killed Keith Hansen.
No gun was found.
Wilcox said he thinks he was shot at with a .32. He dug the bullet out of the wall. The murderer of Hansen must now be after Wilcox.
If Wilcox is telling the truth.
He was acquitted. The society gal, Mrs. Patricia Park, established his alibi, said she was with Wilcox at the time the murder was supposed to have occurred.
I read the papers, Archie.
Where's last night's paper? Wow, boss, look at her picture. Ooh, she's a honey.
Archie, will you get me some beer?
Well, if you move your arm 6 1/4 inches, you can't possibly miss it. Mr. Wolfe, this is Tom Wilcox, our new client.
How do you do?
Archie, the red leather chair for Mr. Wilcox.
Mr. Wolfe, I'd like your aid in finding the murderer of Keith Hansen.
Indeed. Why do you suppose you were shot at this morning?
I gave a statement to the press last night, which was printed this morning, saying that I was going to seek out the killer of Keith Hansen. The killer obviously wants me stopped. Here's the bullet, a .32, I'd say.
Why did you go to Keith Hansen's apartment on the day of his death?
I went there to tell him to stay away from my sister. We had a fight. The manager came and stopped us. I told Hansen I'd kill him if he didn't lay off. The manager heard this. Then I went home.
What time was that?
About 8:30. The police claimed I returned to Hansen's apartment and shot him. I couldn't prove I was at home all night. It was going rough for me until Patricia Park testified she was with me at the time when the crime was said to have been committed.
Why didn't you tell the police in the first place that this Patricia Park was with you?
Well, that's the whole trouble. She wasn't.
What?
Her claim that she spent the hours from 9 till midnight with me was a lie. In fact, I'd never met the woman in my life.
Have you contacted this Patricia since your release, Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, but she refuses to see me.
Archie, phone Mrs. Patricia Park and tell her that she must see you at once for her own good. Time is of the essence.
And what else can you tell me, Mrs. Park?
Mr. Goodwin, I haven't anything more to say than I've already said.
All I want is a simple answer as to why you lied about being with Tom Wilcox.
Well, Tom Wilcox is a very fine man, but he isn't telling you the truth.
Did you commit the murder and succeed in establishing your own alibi by swearing you and Tom Wilcox were together 10 miles from the scene of the crime?
I did not.
Do you own a gun?
Don has one around.
Who's Don?
Don's my husband.
Oh, is he here?
I doubt it. He's never here. Spends most of his time at the bookies, throwing away every cent he can get his hands on. I've had to cut his allowance to practically nothing.
Doesn't he work?
No. He studied medicine, but gave it up. He was an illustrator for years, but gave that up when his eyes were burned in a plane crash.
Mm-hmm. Where's the gun?
It's in the desk. It used to be in here.
What caliber?
I don't know.
Where were you at 10 o'clock this morning?
Why, I think I was with the cook.
Someone fired a shot at Tom Wilcox this morning through the window.
No. Oh, no. Archie, please don't continue with this investigation, please.
How well did you know Keith Hansen?
Not very well, but enough to realize he was no good. Mr. Goodwin, if you'll drop this case, I'll give you $1,000 cash.
Not interested. But I am interested in learning why you lied, why Tom was shot at this morning, and why you should try to bribe me.
You must stop for your own sake.
How will it benefit me to step out of it?
The killer tried to stop Tom Wilcox. You might be next, and he may not miss this time.
Go on. Why have you been protecting Wilcox?
I believe Tom Wilcox was innocent. And I didn't want him to be sentenced to die, so I lied at the trial.
He told us today he'd never seen you before.
That's true. But he looked so innocent, so clean and good and decent.
That's not very believable. If you don't think Wilcox killed Hansen, who do you think did it?
Please believe me, Archie. I don't know. I tell you.
Hi, sis. Hey, what's the matter? Are we intruding?
Oh, hello, Marge. Brad, come in. This is Mr. Goodwin, my sister and brother-in-law, Marge and Brad King.
How do you do?
Hello. What gives, and who's Mr. Goodwin?
A private detective, Marge. I've just explained to Mr. Goodwin that I wasn't with Tom Wilcox at the time of Keith Hansen's murder.
Pat, why did you tell him that?
Mr. Goodwin, I hope you will not use this knowledge against Pat.
Did you all know Keith Hansen?
Yes. And my husband and Keith went to school together.
Keith, Don, and I were on the same polo team.
Where were you at the time of the Hansen murder, Mr. King?
He and Don were attending a horse show at Madison Square Garden. Marge and I didn't want to go. We stayed here.
Where were you at 10 this morning, Mr. King?
Why, I had an appointment with my dentist, Dr. Flagg, Rockefeller Center.
And you, Mrs. King?
I was shopping. Ilsa's salon, a sale on dresses. Why all this questioning?
Marge, someone tried to kill Tom Wilcox this morning.
What?
May I use the phone, Mrs. Park?
Yes, of course. First door to your left.
Suppose you try to find the gun.
Marge, that gun is missing from the desk.
I haven't seen it.
Do you know the caliber, Mr. King?
32, I think.
It must be in the house.
For your sake, I hope you find it.
Nero Wolfe speaking.
Archie, boss.
You should have reported long ago. She must be very pretty.
Pat Park admits she lied. She claims now she was with her sister, Marge King. Marge and her husband, Brad, have alibis, and all have alibis for this morning. I'll check them before I return.
Where were they the night of the Hansen murder?
Well, Brad and Don Park, that's Pat's husband, were at the Madison Square Garden horse show. Pat and Marge were together here at the house.
Impossible to verify the Madison Square alibi at this date. Check all the rest and come home for lunch. It's Oysters Rockefeller.
Has Inspector Kramer arrived yet?
He has, and left the police records on the Hansen murder. He has taken the bullet Wilcox brought to be checked at ballistics.
Good. Pat had a .32 caliber gun in the desk in the library. It's now missing.
Gee.
And, boss, Pat just offered me $1,000 to quit the case. When I refused, she said if I didn't lay off, something might happen to me.
Oh, dear me. That would be most upsetting, eh? After lunch, I want you to visit the late Keith Hansen's apartment. Bye.
Before you join the others, Mr. Goodwin, I want to talk to you.
All right. Close the door, Marge.
Pat didn't mean anything when she offered you money, Archie. And she wasn't threatening you, honest.
I'm convinced. Why the pressure?
Well, why don't you sit down? Here, by me.
Okay. What's on your mind, huh?
Archie, I can add another 1,000 to what Pat offered. Wouldn't that be enough, Archie? I can give it to you right now. Brad'll write a check.
Does Brad want me to stop, too?
He said you couldn't be persuaded.
Every one of you seems to have had a reason for killing Hansen. None of you apparently liked him. Now, be a good little girl, Marge, and stop trying to act like a Delilah. If you're innocent, you have nothing to worry about.
You're stuffy. I hope you do get hurt.
Thanks a million. Now let's join the others. Well, Pat, did you find the gun?
I can't find it anywhere. Oh, Mr. Goodwin, this is Don Park, my husband.
How do you do?
How are you?
Have you seen the gun, Mr. Park?
Not for ages. You're a detective, huh?
Yeah. May I ask where you were this morning about 10?
Why? Well, frankly, I was at my bookie's.
Where's that?
I can't tell you, but I'll call him and you can check it.
Were you and Brad together at all times during the horse show the night of Keith Hansen's murder?
No. Brad wandered away a couple of times, and I saw some people I knew.
You know how it is. We'd meet at intervals.
Archie, you're wasting your time. None of us is guilty. I made a fool of myself, that's all. Tom Wilcox was such a decent man that I hated to see him have to pay for taking Keith Hansen's rotten life.
If a man's guilty, why should you butt in? You never use your head.
Pat is one person who thinks of others before herself.
Marge, forget it.
Now you've got private detectives snooping around. What are you after, Goodwin? Who are you working for? Why don't you let my wife alone? The case is closed, isn't it?
Maybe.
Don, this just makes it more interesting to Mr. Goodwin.
As a matter of fact, I think you all know more than you're telling. I still think Tom Wilcox killed him. And there's only one reason why Pat should protect him.
Don, that's enough.
Nice, happy family, suffering all the torments of a guilty conscience, is that it?
What are you trying to do, Mr. Goodwin? Get your nose poked?
Not exactly.
If not, you'd better leave.
Okay, Mr. King, I'll run along. Mr. Wolfe will be anxiously waiting to hear about this. So long.
Pat Park's cook verified her alibi for 10 o'clock this morning, then. What about the other alibis?
Well, Brad's dentist said that he didn't get to Brad until about 10:30. His appointments had run over. He wasn't sure if Brad was there at 10 or not. The nurse was out at that time. Marge's alibi is no good. And at mob at Ilsa's, the saleswomen wouldn't have known their own mothers. Don's alibi checks if we can take the word of the bookie.
Don and Pat, then, are the only ones who have alibis that checked, huh?
That's right. Are these the reports Inspector Kramer brought?
Mm-hmm.
Keith Hanson's body showed obvious signs of battery. Lips were swollen and lacerated, clothes disarranged. Knuckles of the right hand were skinned, nose fractured. Major contusion over the right eye. The eyes were closed. .32 caliber bullet was embedded in the left chest wall. Wow, what a battle.
I am of the opinion that Hanson was battered by two different people. I think someone arrived after Wilcox was thrown out by the manager, and this someone gave Hanson another beating.
Really, boss?
Come, let's have dinner. Then you must get over to Hanson's apartment.
Boss?
Yes, Archie. What have you found at Hanson's place?
Well, the desk yielded one thing of interest. Keith's address book. And Marge's name is in there. Apparently, he'd known her before she was married, when she was Marge Van Cott.
I see.
A married name King was added in a different colored ink. Pat's phone number's there, and of course Don's and Brad's office numbers. There are a few bills, but no letters, no clues.
Sure?
Boss, I've combed the place, and there's no... Hey, wait a minute, I'll call you back. Who's there?
Archie, you know I dislike the banging of doors. Sign of ill breeding. Archie, what happened to you?
Target for tonight, Archie Goodwin.
Your forehead's bleeding. You better have Fritz fix it.
Well, my head can wait. Some guy certainly surprised me at Hanson's. Creased me on the forehead. Good thing I snapped off the lights. He emptied his gun at me. We scuffled and he got away. And then I dug his slug out of a chair. I think it's a .32. But look at this, boss. A little round piece of glass. Found it on the floor.
It's very small, very smooth, and concavo-convex in shape. Half an inch diameter.
Watch crystal?
Don't think so. The edges are too smoothly ground. I'll examine it under a magnifying glass.
I'll get it, boss. Oh, hi, Tom. Come in. Mr. Wilcox, boss.
Archie, hey, what's happened to you?
Somebody tried to scalp me.
Good evening, Mr. Wilcox.
The red leather chair, Tom.
Archie, please finish your report. Did you notice anything else of importance at Hanson's apartment?
Is that where this happened?
Yeah. Well, there were dozens of gals' photos scattered around.
Photos, eh? But no letters, Archie?
Not a one.
There must be some letters, Archie. Love letters. Wherever we have girls' photos and telephone numbers, I assure you there are bound to be love letters. That is what we must find. But then we'll have a motive.
Yeah, but where do I look, huh?
Go to Hanson's dressing room at the Club Diablo. I have just phoned the place. A female singer is substituting for Hanson, but she won't arrive until supper hour. Mr. Wilcox, accompany Mr. Goodwin, if you please. Keep your eyes open. I need the boy.
Then you do love me, boss? Come on, Tom. Let's look at this Club Diablo.
Well, I fixed it up with the stage doorman. Here, this is Hanson's dressing room.
What a layout. This dressing room's fancier than most of the Met stars get.
Hanson fixed it up himself. A bar, refrigerator, hot plate, television set. He could live here.
Some of this stuff could be the new girl singers.
I don't think so.
Well, let's get to work, Tom. Take the drawers in his dressing table first.
What are we looking for, Archie?
Mr. Wolfe says the motive. He means letters. There's nothing here. Nothing in the desk. New singer must have cleaned it out for her things.
Nothing in the books.
Don't pass up that refrigerator.
Nope. Empty. Hey, there is something here. Back of the ice cube trays. Come here.
Oh, well. Mr. Wolfe said there had to be letters, and so there are letters. Lots of them. Hey, here's one from Marge. And another. Look here. Really confidential letters from a dozen society gals.
There's something else in the back.
Bank book. Well, you know, a singer like Keith didn't make this much.
No, that kind of money didn't come from crooning.
This guy Keith was really shaking these babes down.
Archie, someone's coming. Listen.
Quick, behind the door and grab him. Douse the lights.
Run, Marge!
Hold it, Tom. Well, it's you two.
You dirty rat. Higgin woman. What are you and Archie doing here? The letters. Archie, you found them. Archie, please, give me those letters.
Don't touch. I'll just put them safely away in my pocket. Besides, you didn't write all of these.
Give them to me. At least give me my letters.
I'll tell you what. You go on home and stay there, and we'll leave it up to Mr. Wolfe. Tom, take him outside. I want to use his phone.
Come along, ladies. Let us oblige Mr. Goodwin. I'll meet you at the stage door, Archie.
Right. Hey, the lights. Who's there?
Put the phone up, Goodwin.
Who are you?
Archie, what happened? Are you hurt? Here, let me help you.
I'm all right. I guess. Ooh, my head. Did you see anybody?
No, I didn't. I shouldn't have left you.
Turn out the lights before I saw him. He whispered. Got away with all the evidence. Where are the girls?
I sent them home in a cab.
Well, let's get over to Mr. Wolfe. This is tough luck. If I'm not mistaken, his next move will be to have a little get-together with all concerned. Come on.
Archie, the door, our guests are arriving.
Excuse me, Tom. Come in, Inspector Kramer.
Goodwin.
Good evening, Inspector.
Well, Mr. Wolfe, got the killer? You said you'd hand him over to me this evening.
In time, Inspector. You know Tom Wilcox, of course.
Mr. Wolfe.
Evening, Inspector.
What about the ballistics report, Inspector?
The bullet was shot from the same gun that killed Hanson.
And that gun, I am certain, came from the home of Pat and Don Parks. Marge and Brad King also had access to it. I have one more bullet here, Inspector, one fired at Mr. Goodwin. I am sure it was also shot from the same gun. However, it isn't important now.
Isn't important? It almost cost me my life.
You can make it into a charm if you wish. Inspector Kramer, before our other guests arrive, I must tell you that Mrs. Park lied on the witness stand. She was not with Tom Wilcox at the time Keith Hanson was murdered. In fact, they were absolute strangers.
What?
Sit down, Inspector. 4 other guests are due to arrive any moment.
Well, who are the other guests?
Patricia and Don Park, Marge and Brad King. One or all is involved in the Hanson murder. Archie, do any of these people wear spectacles?
No, none of them.
Do you know why this person killed Hanson, Mr. Wolfe?
First of all, Hanson was a blackmailer. The girl Marge was the current victim. The letters Hanson held were the threat. I'll explain later.
Well, then Pat must have thought that Marge killed Hanson to get the letters, and she lied on the stand to save Tom's life because she believed Tom was innocent.
Where's this Marge King? I'll have her picked up.
Sit down, Inspector. Archie, I believe our guests are arriving now.
Come in.
How are you?
Good evening. Archie, cheers. Inspector Kramer, Patricia and Don Park, Marge and Brad King, and this is Tom Wilcox.
We've met at the Club Diablo this afternoon.
All right, Mr. Wolfe. Which one is it?
Patience, Inspector. One of these 5 people is the murderer of Keith Hansen, a killer.
What is this nonsense?
Please sit down. Mr. Wolfe speaking. Go ahead, boss.
Any one of you had sufficient motive to have committed the Hansen murder. Not one of you has established a bona fide alibi. You who are actually innocent must tell the truth, or you shall all suffer as accessories after the fact.
Mr. Wolfe, you're wasting your time.
Marge, several years ago, you were secretly married to Keith Hansen. It lasted but 1 week. You gave Keith the money to get a divorce from you at Mexico. He didn't, which made you a bigamist when you married Brad. Keith was all set to blackmail you. He knew your husband, Brad, was wealthy.
Marge, is this true?
Yes. Oh, please, Brad, I thought he got the divorce.
If I'd known that, I would have killed Hansen myself.
Maybe you did kill him.
One moment, Inspector. Patricia, you lied on the stand to protect Tom Wilcox here because you believed your sister Marge was guilty of Hansen's murder. Why did you believe her guilty? Were you at the scene of the crime?
Marge, it's time to tell the truth and clear all this up.
You won't be satisfied until you're in jail. Will you shut up?
Quiet, please. Go ahead, Marge.
All right. Keith Hansen was shot from the bedroom while I stood talking to him in the living room.
You went there to buy back your letters?
Yes, Pat drove me to his apartment. There was no place to park, so she said she'd drive around the block until I came out. That's why she's never been sure whether I killed him or not.
That's right. Because I feel I might have shot him if I'd been in your place. Because of what Hansen did.
What was it he did?
Keith Hansen demanded $10,000 in exchange for the letters. Pat loaned me the money, so Brad wouldn't know.
What? Is that true, Pat? You loaned her $10,000?
I got to Keith's apartment about 9:30. He looked awful. He obviously had been in a fight. The room was mussed up and his nose was bleeding.
Yes, go on.
He went to the bedroom to get the letters and came back saying they were gone. I didn't believe him. Keith said he knew who had taken them and he'd have them back by morning. He grabbed the money from me and put it in his pocket. He was just about to tell me who took the letters when there was a shot from the bedroom door. Keith Hansen fell to the floor, but I didn't see anyone. I wanted to get my money from his coat pocket, Pat's money, but I couldn't touch him. His staring, wide-open eyes were horrifying. I ran.
Poor baby, why didn't you tell me?
I think you're lying, young lady. You took the gun from your sister's desk, and when Keith Hansen didn't produce the letters, you deliberately shot him. You didn't even offer him any money. You kept it yourself.
No, I didn't. Oh, Pat, don't believe him.
Inspector Kramer, she's innocent. I know who did it.
Oh, no, Brad, stop. Oh, Brad, what are you saying?
All right. Break it up.
Yeah, so do I know, Brad. That's why you left the horse show. I've thought you were guilty all along.
All right, Inspector. Now you know.
I don't get this, boss.
Inspector, ladies and gentlemen, please. First, which of you had some medical training?
Medical training? Well, Keith Hansen and I both went to medical school. Why?
That is most enlightening, Mr. Park.
Marge and I were nurses' aides during the war.
Then perhaps you can interpret this medical phraseology for me. These few lines from this little medical book. Archie, hand it to Don Park. Will you read it, please? Top of page 75.
It says the form of pernicious anemia commonly found in the human is...
Now, Don, hold your hand over your right eye and read on.
What? Also common to the many lower...
Now, cover the left eye and read with the other.
What is this?
Go ahead.
Well, many lower animals and this light isn't so good.
Step close to me. Yes, thank you. Mr. Park, here is the contact lens for your right eye. I'm sure you've been tremendously handicapped without it all day. Inspector Don Park is your murderer.
Don't move, Park.
Keep away, I warn you.
Drop that gun, Park.
Well, I got his gun. There you are, Inspector. He's all yours now.
Okay, come on.
Okay, Goodwin. But I'll get out of this.
You trapped yourself, Don, by your contact lens. It dropped from your eye during the scuffle with Archie in the Hansen apartment this afternoon. And the gun Archie just took from you is undoubtedly the murder weapon. and the gun that fired the bullets at Wilcox and Archie today.
Hey, Tom, are you all right? There's blood on the side of your head.
Just grazed my scalp. You and I must have hard heads.
Well, that's that. Thanks so much, Inspector, for dropping in. Come again, won't you?
This was a rough day's work, boss.
Some beer, Archie, please.
Right. Hey, what was that business about the medical training?
Marge said the body of Keith had staring, wide-open eyes, preventing her from touching the body. But the police found the eyelids closed. How did they get closed?
Well, he must have bothered Don, too, and he closed him, his medical training.
Right. A layman would never touch the eyes of the dead. Marge couldn't, not even to get back the $10,000.
Here's your beer. Why did Don do all this, boss?
Obviously, he learned of Hanson's blackmail scheme and was trying to force him to agree to split Marge's $10,000. Don was quite startled a minute ago to learn that Pat, his own wife, put up the money. However, when they heard Marge arriving, Don stepped into the bedroom, found Marge's letters in there, and must have hidden in the closet.
And then as Keith Hanson was about to speak Don's name, Don shot him and took Marge's money. And of course, he planned to carry on a blackmailing of Marge himself, thinking the money would come from Brad.
Yeah. And you are warming that beer with your hot little hands. Pour it, please.
There you are.
You've had a rough day, beaten twice and lost to interesting women. Tonight you may open your bedroom window. Good night, Archie.
You have been listening to The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, starring Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight's transcribed story by Gladys Williams was based on the characters created by Rex Stout. This is an Edwin Fadiman production, produced and directed by J. Donald Wilson. In the cast were Harry Bartell as Archie Goodwin, and Mary Lansing, Gene Bates, Paul Marion, Barney Phillips, Ken Peters, and Bill Johnstone. Next week at this same time, Nero Wolfe and Archie will bring you The Case of the Lost Heir. Don Stanley speaking. 3 chimes mean good times on NBC.
Well, before we get started with today's episode of Let George Do It, I want to encourage you to pick up a copy of Tales of the Dim Night. My wife and I's novel. It's a great family story and a solid superhero comedy that plays tribute to many of the great Golden Age superheroes. It's available as both a paperback and an ebook form. You can purchase it over at dimnight.com. Well, let's get into today's episode, Too Near the Sky.
Personal notice, Stanger's my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. Too Near the Sky, another adventure of George Valentine.
Dear Mr. Valentine, my telephone number is Gramercy 3747. Can you remember that? Gramercy 3747? I've investigated you thoroughly, and I know you won't get it wrong. You won't forget. A man as good-looking as you are just couldn't be irresponsible, at least not about women, or maybe it's the other way around. It doesn't make sense. I know I don't make sense, but then if I did, that would show that I wasn't afraid, wouldn't it? And then I wouldn't be needing you, would I? Please, Please, the moment you get this letter. Mrs. Sonia Belsing, Gramercy 3747.
But we've been trying to telephone you all afternoon, Mrs. Belsing.
Oh, I know. My line's busy. It's always busy. But, my dear, you said Mr. Valentine.
I'm right here on the extension, Mrs. Belsing.
Extension? Oh, my. It's just like one of those quiz programs calling, isn't it?
Yeah. They have a hard time getting answers, too.
But, Mr. Valentine, all I want is for you to come to a party.
You want us to come to a party?
No one must know who you really are, so you'll be Mr. Valentine.
Huh?
But my cousin or something from out of town or Sioux City or Boston, do you understand?
Well,
Oh, but, Miss Brooks.
Yes?
He can't have a date, if you know what I mean.
Oh, well, I guess I could be Mrs. Valentine. I wouldn't mind a bit.
No, that's one thing you mustn't be. His sister, that's it. You'll be
Mrs. Belsing, please, you said you were afraid. Of whom? Of what? Why?
There's an old, dear friend of mine who's just back from Lake Tahoe for the first time in a year. Vivian Hargrove. She's giving a party in her penthouse, the 32nd floor. That's the top floor of the Hargrove Sims building.
Yes, okay, so much for that.
Are you superstitious?
Huh?
I mean, it's rather a strange place. I hope it doesn't make you uneasy or nervous. Vivian, I mean. Oh, yes, and there's someone I want you to introduce yourself to. Eric Sims. But don't really say anything. You'll understand why when I meet you there. If we can't talk, I'll write a little note giving you instructions.
Mrs. Belsing, I'd rather understand everything right now.
So would I, Mr. Valentine, but there's no hurry. And besides, something has come up. What I mean is, by the time I see you, I'm sure I'll have the answers for you. I'm not a coward, and I've never made a false accusation in my life, but I am superstitious.
But why do you want us there? Superstitious about what?
Oh, Mr. Valentine, murder, of course. Isn't that your business?
Oh, push the button again, George.
Well, I did, but the arrow just stays there on the 32nd floor. Crazy place.
But, George, we're late. Try one of the other buttons.
Well, the other elevators aren't automatic, so they're all closed up for the night.
Oh, fine. Me and my long dress and these high heels and they're no shoes.
Well, Angel, we take a case from a middle-aged maniac. We don't even know what she wants, so we shouldn't complain about walking up a mere 32 flights of stairs, should we?
I can't help it, George. This hike toward the sky gives me the queerest feeling.
Yeah, no. Nothing is deader than an office building at night.
And shadows. Lots of shadows. You know, I think if I believed in ghosts, I'd imagine them living in a place that... George, what is it?
It's nothing, Angel. You just bumped into a fire extinguisher.
Oh.
What's more dangerous to us is the sign over it.
What do you mean?
Yeah. It only says the 21st floor. Well, at least it should be a swanky party. Real honest-to-gosh penthouse, no doubt about that.
I wonder if there really is anybody up there. What we're walking up to. What kind of people...
Hello.
Hello.
I heard you on the stairs. Elevator stuck again.
Yes, that's right.
Well, this is the 31st floor. Where are you?
We're on our way to a party.
A party?
Yeah, upstairs, Mrs. Hargrove.
Oh, I see.
So, if you'll excuse us...
Oh, no. Excuse me, please. I didn't mean to be rude or curious. You see, I'm the general manager of this company. These are the executive offices on this floor, and my name is Eric Sims.
Mr. Sims?
Yes, come in, won't you? Got a chance to catch your breath?
Well, thanks, Mr. Sims, we will. I'm George Valentine, and this is my sister, Claire.
Pleasure. And you do look charming, Miss Valentine.
Oh, thank you.
Valentine?
We're cousins of Sonia Belsing.
Oh, of course. Sonia's quite a person, isn't she? I love her. I suppose she must have talked about me. She usually rattles away about everyone she knows.
No, I don't think so, Mr. Sims. But coming up, we were a little curious.
Yes, the size of your building.
Oh, our company's just on 2 floors. Real estate investments, Mr. Valentine.
Oh, I get it. You built the place.
That's it. And this is my bailiwick in here.
Oh, my, what a lovely office.
Perhaps you'd like a drink after all that exercise.
Oh, no, thank you. But I am warm. Do you mind if I open a window?
Of course not. Whatever you wish.
Those last 10 flights just about ruined me.
Use both hands, Miss Valentine.
What?
Get the window on both sides. It sticks. It's been painted just yesterday. The entire office.
Oh, yes.
You know, I'm not sure I like the color, though. It was Vivian Hargrove's idea. Wrote the decorator from Tahoe, and he came storming in here like a wounded hen. I couldn't argue with him. What do you think, Miss Valentine?
I'm sorry. I wasn't listening. George, come here a minute.
Yeah?
Look. Just look down there.
Way up in the air, aren't we?
31 stories. Might as well be 31 miles. Look at those cars in the street. They're so tiny.
Mm-hmm. Say, what's the overhang up there? Cuts off the view above.
It's a guardrail for the penthouse.
Guardrail?
Safety ledge, that's all. Just put up.
Well, there certainly isn't one down here. George, look, the way the wall of the building just falls off below you. Down, down, and down.
Excuse me, the draft. I have a little cold.
Of course. I was just enjoying the view.
Look here, I don't mean to be rude tonight, but I've been finishing some special work on my desk.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Sims, we understand. We'll go on upstairs to the party.
Well, Sonia may have given you the wrong impression. There really isn't a party.
What?
Huh?
It'll be just us, I mean. The few of us, the lonely people in the tower. Don't let us throw you. We'll manage to have fun somehow.
Oh, but I'm glad to have you, both of you.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Hargrove. If we'd known...
And I love the way you're dressed. I'll bet it was Sonia's idea. She thinks people should dress like Englishmen in the jungle. Oh, that sounds awful. All mixed up just like her.
Well, Sonia's an Elsa Maxwell.
Isn't she? Only I do wish there were going to be more of us. So far, it's only me and Rachmaninoff over there.
Well, don't let it worry you. Crowds scare me.
You're silly if you're polite. See, Mr. Valentine, I know exactly why you're here.
Oh, do you?
Yes. And I think you're beautiful like all the rest of them she brings. But I'm not in the least interested in you.
You're not?
No. I've only been back in town a few days, and Sonia's been haunting me with men. Me, a married woman, you understand? Huh? I said me, a married woman, and I love my husband.
Oh, shut up, will you?
Shut up yourself.
Shut up!
Shut up!
Well, Rachmaninoff's quite a little gentleman, huh?
Forgive it. He's my brother, Peter Cannon.
And he knows not what he does. Hello.
How do you do?
Brothers and sisters should... pour yourself a drink, won't you?
Not yet, thank you.
You look pretty well poured.
Good guess tonight, Vivian. It's an improvement.
Don't you ever get tired of the same tune, Mr. Cannon?
Oh, no, it's the apartment. Tired of the same world.
Let's be nice, huh? I'm a host. I'll show you around.
My husband's apartment.
Vivian, please.
It is.
She means Hargrove did the decor.
Oh, well, it is rather an unusual place, isn't it?
Yeah, strange decorations.
Oh, I don't know. It's a hobby, that's all. He collected stuff.
He does.
Vivian?
What's in all the cases here?
My golly, George, look. Handcuffs, blackjacks, knives, dozens of them.
Mayhem and violence. Oh, don't look shocked. It's just a hobby. Oh, but here. Out here are the real prizes.
Masks. All over the wall.
Yeah. Rows and rows of masks. But they're all...
Yes, Mr. Valentine. Death mask.
Sure, that's right. Some from the South Seas, some from Africa. It's a good collection. It's one of the best in the world.
My husband is obsessed by the idea of death.
Oh, cut it out, will you? Guy's got a penthouse. Why not be unique about it? Now, some people like zebra skins. Well, he got a bang out of this stuff.
He's obsessed.
Now, look, even out here, the roof garden. See the statues? Sure, it's wacky, but a hobby. One guy's hobby, that's all.
Are you superstitious, Mr. Valentine? Are you?
Well, I'm beginning to think maybe I am.
Feel the wind. Look at the stars. It's a penthouse with wacky decorations. And that's all. Just picture a penthouse.
Of course, Mr. Valentine, my husband is. My husband...
Claudia, please be quiet, will you? Mrs. Hargrove, I know we've intruded and you don't want us, but let's get this straight. When I heard you'd been living in Nevada the past year, I naturally assumed...
Oh, no, we're not divorced. We're quite happy. We're quite...
The last time, Pippi, will you get out of that present tense?
Take it easy, Buster.
No. Her husband's been dead for the past 6 months.
He says if you live too close to the stars, you've got to fall sometime. And he walks out here alone. And he moves toward the railing. Like this.
And he stands on the edge and stares down. And then, very smoothly, like a shooting star, aimed at the face.
Mrs. Hargrove.
What? Oh, Mr. Valentine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He's dead. I know he's dead. He fell.
Well, there's no need for you to go along, too, you know.
Oh, I won't. Forgive me. I'm not really out of my mind.
Oh, no, not much. But you're gonna be, Vivi, if you don't stop this.
Here, please. It's this place. This crazy, haunted place. Sweet slice of heaven where just you and I killed my husband. That's what it is, Mr. Valentine. 6 months ago, I killed my husband.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Winter weather in the West offers a grand variety of sports, but it nearly always means extra work for your car's battery. That's one good reason why you should rely on Chevron Supreme gasoline, for it's a premium quality gasoline specially blended to give faster starts with less battery strain in the coldest weather. But equally important, Chevron Supreme is the gasoline that's climate-tailored. It's tailored to each different season and to the different altitude and temperature zones throughout the West. So wherever you drive, rely on Chevron Supreme to get the best out of your car. Faster starts, faster pickup in traffic, ping-free power on hills. Try a tank full tomorrow. You'll find you can't buy a better gasoline for today's high-compression engines. Ask for Chevron Supreme at independent Chevron gas stations and at standard stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Now, back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. A penthouse, too close to the sky, decorated with weapons and curios and death masks. Sonia Belsing, who asked you to this strange place and this strange party that isn't a party, hasn't even shown up yet. You're not even sure why you're here. But if your name is George Valentine, you have a pretty good idea what needs to be done. When Vivian Hargrove screams out that her husband is dead, that 6 months ago he fell 32 stories to the street, and then almost casually adds the remark that she killed him.
Mr. Sims, what sort of a man was your partner?
Hargrove? Oh, well, he drank a bit. like his brother-in-law Peter there. But he was big, hearty, the greeter of the firm.
With an obsession about death?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And now his wife is all...
I really don't know Vivian very well. She's been away so much. See here, I really think it would be better if you and Miss Valentine would... Well...
Yes. Okay, we'll be going. Oh, how is she, Angel?
Oh, hello, Mr. Sims. Well, she's all right now, George.
Perhaps I'd better go in.
Excuse me. Did you find the telephone, George?
Telephone?
Yeah, I did. I wonder if you'd mind if I went in to see Mrs. Hargrove, Mr. Sims. I'd like to tell her good night.
Well, of course.
In the meantime, I'll give you a chance to go over and pour some black coffee on those piano strings.
You say you used the telephone.
Mrs. Hargrove, when I hear something I don't understand, I like to get an answer fast. And straight from the horse's mouth.
In this case, the police, Mrs. Hargrove.
Police?
You said you'd killed your husband. Well, I didn't tell them why, but I asked them what happened. They say 6 months ago there was an investigation. That your husband had committed suicide.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I just thought I'd say it. But you really know it, don't you?
Yes. They were very kind at the time. I first knew it when the wire came. The ranger had left it in my cabin.
Wire? Ranger?
I was up at Lake Tahoe. Didn't Sonia tell you?
But why do you accuse yourself of...
Guilt, I suppose. I was in Nevada because I was going to get a divorce. I wasn't patient enough. I left him down here alone with his strange obsessions instead of helping
But
him.
that's scarcely cause for...
A feeling of guilt is a terrible thing. It gives you dreams. It's like pretending he's alive when I really know he's dead. But I didn't ever act this way or feel this way until I came back for the first time a few days ago.
Why did you come back to the same place at all?
Well, the furniture had to be sold, the apartment leased, that sort of business. I certainly don't intend to stay here. I wasn't worried about it. My brother was coming with me.
Oh, yeah, that brother of yours is a big help.
Oh, he doesn't know any better, that's all. It's just the building somehow. The tower. Even before I came back, I was a little nervous. I ordered my husband's old office, Mr. Sims now, repainted, so I wouldn't remember him. I started out in that office. I was my husband's secretary several years ago. But the things up here I had to face, and I couldn't. All the souvenirs of death. I got so mixed up.
Why, Mrs. Hargrove? Maybe because you still think your husband's collection was just a hobby, the way your brother said? You've never thought it was an obsession that led to suicide?
I wish Sonia were here. She called from the drugstore if it were just the elevator.
Oh, everybody's upset. Maybe no one close to him thought he'd actually do it. Only in your case, you can't see any other explanation, and so you develop all this stuff about your own...
Valentine, no. No, Mr. Valentine, please.
But you...
No, I won't listen. I'm mixed up enough. I can't believe that. It had to be suicide.
All right. I'm sorry. Forget it.
You're afraid I'll go spinning off the handle again,
No, Skipper, will you please?
I know the elevator wouldn't stop Sonia. But maybe I should see about having it fixed if it hasn't been...
I've already spoken to your brother about it.
Oh, Peter doesn't know what to do. Down in the office is a separate house phone to the building engineer. I'll run down and talk to him.
Yeah, that might be a good idea, Mrs. Hargrove.
Give me something to do, you mean?
Maybe.
I'm all right, really, I am. But we'll do lots of things tonight. And singing and dancing, we'll have so much fun. It'll keep my mind open all the place. Come on.
And, Angel, we don't even know yet why we're here.
Well, George, it wasn't just to take care of an hysterical woman. Sonia said she was afraid...
Hey, come on.
What's that?
What do you think you're doing, you...
Hey, what is this?
Look at him, handcuffed. I did it.
Handcuffed?
I did it.
Get me out of these. Valentine, take that key away from me.
Oh, no, you don't. No. English handcuffs at that. They're antiques.
Hey, what?
Now try and find your key.
All right, Buster, so you threw it to the birds. What's the big idea?
I was just standing here of all the ridiculous notions for a joke.
Leave him here, Mr. Valentine, and come with me, will you? Come with me out to the elevator. The arrow points to the ground floor, you see?
And earlier the one down there was pointing up here. So since then it must have...
No. Look at this arrow. You reach up, you can grab it.
Yeah, it's swinging loose.
It's been pulled that way. So nobody would guess...
What do you mean?
That the elevator isn't broken at all. But it's not downstairs. It's right here. Right here.
Is that...
Yeah. Sonia Bells.
Yeah, she's dead, all right. Been dead for some time, I guess. Since before we got here.
I was asleep in my room all afternoon.
Oh, Angel, take it easy.
Oh.
It's a knife, huh? More stuff from that crazy collection.
And George, here's her purse.
Now, we'll take a look.
Writes the note. You know the note she told us she'd write, remember? To you with the instructions.
Here, let me see that.
Oh, no, you don't.
Let me see it. I'm going to call the police and tell them I...
Get going fast.
No.
Now, stand still, will you? She's calling the police.
But I got to tell them that Sims did it. He did it.
Sure, bright boy with the handcuffs. Who says so?
Sonia didn't like him, see? She was afraid of him. She wanted Vivi to get interested in other men so Sims wouldn't try to get next to her.
You make as much sense.
I know I've been drinking, but believe me, nobody close to Hargrove ever thought he killed himself. And it drives all of us crazy. But his death masks were just a laugh, that's all. They were a big gag to pull at parties.
Okay, Buster.
Don't you see? Sonia was wise. She thought it was his partner, it was Sims, who murdered Hargrove, and I'm going in and help. Oh.
Now, Petey, you're going to stay right here for a while. Pleasant dreams. Get him, Angel?
Yeah, I talked to Lieutenant Riley. He'll be here as fast as he can.
Now, let's see that note Sonia Belsing wrote.
You know, George, it's funny. It was our instructions, all right, but she was going to fire us.
What?
Yes, it just says she's sorry to have bothered us, but she's decided to handle matters in another way. And, quote, don't say anything to anyone. Please, 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 Sonia Belsing.
Huh?
Darling, she must have been threatened. That's the only explanation. So she did know something. And look here, on the outside of the purse.
Paint. Little spot of fresh paint.
Mm-hmm, the same color as that office.
Hey, Mr. Sims. Mr. Sims. Angel, where is he?
Well, George, I've been at the phone. But he has handcuffs on anyway.
What difference does that make?
He's gone.
I know, and I've been asleep at the switch. I let Vivian Hargrove go downstairs to that very same office. It's Sims' office, all right. Come on, through here.
Peter! Go!
What's the window? There's a window!
Go! Let go of me! Stop it! Mr. Valentine! Help!
They're going to fall. It's Mr. Sims!
Hang on! Get it! Hang on!
I got it!
Oh,
You're all right. Hang on, hang on.
he's falling! Oh, he was trying to push me. He's falling!
Oh, George.
Tried to kill me. I was here in the office. He followed me. He had those handcuffs on him. He hit me with them.
Come on, George.
Take it easy. Now get away from the sill.
It was awful. He was insane. He knew, I guess, that he killed my husband.
Mrs. Hargrove, it's all right now.
He knocked me down. And then he opened the window. I struck him. When I heard you coming, I screamed. What's that?
The police, I sent for them. Too bad they couldn't have flown.
Oh, Mr. Valentine.
Now look, Mrs. Hargrove, stop crying on my shoulder.
If you live too close to the stars, you've got to fall sometime.
Stop it. His death was useless. And I'm sick of your acting.
What?
But if it hadn't happened, I guess we never would have caught you.
What? Yes. You saved my life.
What did you do, Mrs. Hargrove? Knock Sims out, have him ready, and when you heard us coming, give him the final shove so you could start screaming out the next act?
Mr. Valentine, he hit me. He hauled me over to the window.
He was handcuffed.
George, that doesn't make any difference. You yourself
How did he
said-
open the window, Mrs. Hargrove? No, don't touch it. Police like fingerprints. Come on now, how did he open it? It was part of your own act to order this place repainted, remember? So the sash sticks. They always do. You've got to push on both sides at once. And how are you going to do that, Mrs. Hargrove? When you're wearing handcuffs.
No, I'm an idiot.
No, Peter. You've just been trying to dodge the truth. And after all, Sonia Belsing picked on Mr. Sims just as you did.
Well, that's what she was going to tell us originally. Only then, the paint on the purse. Sonia got together with Sims. Began to realize what he'd already begun to suspect. That it was Vivian all along.
That's when Sonia wrote the note we found, saying she'd handle it some other way. Oh, it's not easy for a best friend or a business partner or a brother to decide what to do about a woman they suspect of murder.
I still can't see Vivian doing it.
Sure, it's hard to face, Peter. But Mrs. Hargrove admitted to the police she wasn't really a Tahoe. She was down here.
Yeah, I know. I heard him. But why?
Well, maybe she was ambitious. I don't know. Secretary married one of the partners. He was going to divorce her, so she knocked him off. Half owner. Then 6 months later, she comes back with a neurotic act to cover knocking off the other partner, Sims. Then she'd own the whole company.
Only she realized people were getting suspicious. She had to get rid of Sonia first, and then in we walked. No wonder Vivian was so scared and upset.
Hey, Peter, why do you keep playing that record?
It doesn't bother me. So happens I like my sister.
Yeah, kid, I know.
Just picture a penthouse way up in the sky. George, I still get dizzy just thinking.
Hey, that's not the line to remember, Angel.
Hmm?
We can thank our lucky star that we're living as we are. Let's go, Brooksy.
A man doesn't have to lift the hood of his car to keep it running, naturally. He can put some gas in the tank, forget all about the vital parts under the hood, and his car will run all right for a while. But if you want both safety and savings for your own car, it's wise to have your station man look under the hood regularly. At standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations, the underhood checkup is part of their protective service. That's when they can catch a worn fan belt or leaky radiator hose, things that might lead to major repair bills. Another example is regular oil check. Maybe 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you your oil is at the safe level. But when fresh new oil is needed to avoid costly engine damage, that's when protective service pays its own way many times over. A few minutes of your time tomorrow for an underhood checkup may save you hours of delay and expense the day after. So why not stop at an independent Chevron gas station or at a standard station where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Francis Robinson as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Sarah Selby as Sonia, Robert Griffin as Sims, Lorene Tuttle as Vivian, and Jack Edwards as Peter. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter, your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. It's another one of those great atmospheric pieces that really and truly no one else ever did any better than Let George Do It. Great mystery, great twist leading up to a fantastic conclusion. And it was a conclusion in another way. The last episode with Francine Robinson in the role of Brooksy. She was replaced the next week by Virginia Gregg. And we've talked about, and I think appreciated, the ability of Virginia Gregg on previous podcasts. We'll talk a little bit more about her next week. But there's usually not a very bright dividing line. Well, these are the Francine Robinson episodes, and these are the Virginia Gregg episodes. The talent of Virginia Gregg, I think, tends to make the change almost seamless. I do want to take this moment also to let you know, coming up this weekend, it's our video theater episode. And this one is one that Let George Do It fans will want to take a listen to. Or watch, actually. Let George Do It never made it to television. However, Jackson Gillis did make it to television. And he took one of his Let George Do It scripts, a fairly recent one, and made it into an episode of the TV show On the Law with George Raft. And so you'll get to see which one and see how this radio program played out on television. Now we turn to listener comments and feedback. Mark has a comment on the episode we did from a couple weeks ago called Sweet Poison. Mark, he says, I'm no detective, but I do own a cat. One thing I know about cats is that you shouldn't ever feed them chocolate, because it can give them a heart attack. If I were faced with a cat who turned up dead after eating a chocolate cream, there's really no way I'd assume the chocolates had been poisoned. The episode even gets close to acknowledging how odd this is when Brooksy points out that cats don't tend to eat chocolate on their own, which is true. But that's the extent of it. This is a good point, and growing up, we did not have a whole lot of experience with owning pets. We did get one cat when I was a teenager, but it was kind of an outdoor mouser cat. So it never occurred to us to feed the cat chocolate. But my wife backed you up on that, or family having a much more extensive cat-owning history. I still think the story is somewhat plausible, just because it's a fact not everybody knows. It's possible the client wouldn't know. It's even possible that George Valentine wouldn't know. But you may be correct in terms of the story that one person who didn't know about cats not eating chocolate were the writers. Thanks so much for the comment, Mark. Well, now we turn to Podcast Alley and a comment from Tim. Thanks for the efforts. The shows are well selected. I hear some I've never heard before. MASH ran longer than the actual Korean War, and I've been listening to old-time radio for longer than the 15-year 1945 to 60 peak. It's getting harder to find fresh material. Every once in a while I come across a Gunsmoke or Let George Do It that's new to me. I've strip-mined Philip Marlowe and Sam Spade to exhaustion. I love Candy Matson best, but try to put a year or so between repeated listenings. Well, thanks a lot, Tim. I would encourage you not to schedule a listening to Candy Matson for a little while yet, because Candy Matson is coming to the great detectives of old-time radio in about 6 months. And I'm glad we're finding some fresh material you haven't heard. As I mentioned before, the Adventures of the Abbott series that we've been playing on Monday was not actually in circulation till just this century. While I always like the opportunity to bring people their favorites, it's nice to give folks a chance to discover a new favorite. I continue to be amazed and surprised by all of the little detective shows you run into where there are 2 or 3 episodes out there that nobody ever talks about. And we really like to bring you those forgotten treasures. Well, that'll do it for now. Thanks so much for all your comments, support, and feedback. We will be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes. Well, before we do get started with today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, I want to let you know about Netflix. I was just reading an article last week indicated that now 7% of Americans are Netflix subscribers. And it's no wonder. Every time I go on Netflix, it seems like there is a new television series or movie that's available for instant watch. Some of the more recent entries includes the Perry Mason mystery movies from the 1980s and 90s with Raymond Burr are now available as part of the Instant Watch program, along with detective shows such as Jeremy Brett's Sherlock Holmes and the BBC Miss Marple series. And not to mention a DVD library of more than 90,000 titles. You can try Netflix out for free by going to netflix.greatdetectives.net. Now we're going to get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, Q for Murder.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Well, once again, it's Monday night and time to keep that weekly date with our good friend and host, Dr. Watson. Let's join him, shall we? Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bell. Draw up your usual chair. Ah, that's it. There's tobacco jar in the jar there beside you.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. And now, how about tonight's new Sherlock Holmes
Oh,
adventure?
my boys, I told you last week the story took place in the fetid depths lurking behind the wharfs which line the north side of the river near London Bridge.
Sounds like good old Limehouse to me.
It was, Mr. Bell, though I prefer to call it bad old Limehouse. For it's a neighborhood where human life was held cheap, and a scream in the night or the sickening thud of a criminal's bludgeon were almost commonplace. That, Mr. Bell, is the setting for the weird adventure that I call Q for Murder.
Dr. Watson, you're beginning to make my hair stand on end.
Oh, speaking of hair, Mr. Bell, haven't you a message for our listeners?
Yes, Dr. Watson, I have. Naturally, most any man who takes pride in his appearance uses a hairdressing to keep his hair in place. And men, what about the product you're using at present? You find it too greasy, too highly perfumed? Does it make your hair feel sticky and dirty? Then here's a tip. Change to Kramer hair tonic. This highly specialized hair tonic has just enough light oil to keep hair handsomely groomed. Every hair neatly in place with a rich, healthy-looking luster. Yet Kramer never leaves hair looking or feeling greasy or sticky. This is because Kramer contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. After you use Kramer, just run your hand back over your hair. Notice how delightfully clean your hair feels. Notice how no greasy film comes off on your hand or hatband. Kramer always gives hair such a handsome, clean-cut look, as if you'd just combed it. And it keeps it that way all day long. Kreml, Kramer hair tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, I'm eager to hear the new Sherlock Holmes story, Q for Murder.
Well, Mr. Bell, that strange adventure began in the small hours of a foggy November morning. An emergency call at midnight had roused me from my warm bed, and a rattling horse cab had taken me to the Limehouse district, where an old patient of mine lay desperately ill. For hours I did my best to save a life that flickered in the balance. Finally, I decided that an ambulance was necessary. The sick man needed the resources of a hospital. Accordingly, I left the house and began to walk the cobbled streets looking for policemen. The Playhouse at 3 a.m. is a deserted and frightening district. I could hear the ghostly tooting of the foghorns on the riverboats in the distance. As I walked along, eyes alert, my hand was on the trusty revolver in my pocket, for I was no stranger to the risks involved in walking the streets of Limehouse at such an hour. Suddenly, under the flickering gaslight ahead of me, I saw the blurry outline of a London policeman. So I called out, "Constable! Constable!" The man didn't hear me, for he suddenly turned abruptly and disappeared down the steep flight of steps, his bullseye lantern dancing away like a fading will-o'-the-wisp into the encircling gloom. I decided to follow that vanishing figure, and I quickened my footsteps. After a moment, I saw where the policeman had gone. Between a shop and a gin shop, I noticed a steep flight of stairs leading down a black gap that looked like the mouth of a cave. I walked down them. The steps were worn hollow in the center by the ceaseless tread of stumbling feet. I reached the bottom. A door faced me, and above it, a flickering oil lamp winked warnings at me. I found the latch of the door, lifted it. The door squeaked open protestingly, and I entered. There was a tinkle of glass-beaded curtains as I walked towards a long, low room. A strange sight met my eyes. Through the gloom, thick and heavy with a filthy brown smoke of opium, I saw that the room was terraced with wooden berths. Bodies lay in strange, fantastic poses. Bowed shoulders, bent knees, and heads thrown back. Suddenly an attendant walked up to me with a pipe and beckoned me to an empty berth.
This way, please.
I haven't come here to smoke that foul drug. I saw a policeman enter this place a few moments ago. I want to speak to him.
No policeman here.
I'm carrying a revolver, so you'd better not argue with me, my good man. Where'd he go?
He in back room. Ma sick there. Follow me, please. In here.
Well, bless my soul if it ain't Dr. Watson. All right, Wong, you can leave it.
Yes, sir. I will.
You seem to know me, Constable, but I don't recall meeting you before.
Oh, I seen you and Mr. Holmes at Scotland Yard, Doctor. My name's Merriweather, Constable Merriweather. You couldn't have arrived at a better time, sir. This man needs a doctor, bad.
Poor fellow. A patient of mine nearby needs an ambulance. That's why I followed you down here. Oh, I'll examine this wretched fellow first. How did you know he was here, Constable?
They sent a message to the station. Said he was in trouble here.
He's in trouble, yes. He's in trouble, all right. The poor devil's coughing his life away. Nothing I can do but make his dying a little more comfortable. Here you are. Hand me my bag, Constable, will you?
Here you are, Doctor.
I'll give him a sedative. At least it'll keep him out of pain.
Who are you? What you do?
I'm a doctor, my man. Here, this will ease your pain.
There. You good man, doctor. You help me. Now you help me kill devil who brings opium to my people.
Brings opium? What are you talking about?
You good man. You find Dr. Sturgeon. He bad man. He bring opium.
Sturgeon? I've heard of a Dr. Sturgeon. What's his address?
He's asleep, Doctor.
Yes. This poor devil's hours are numbered, I'm afraid.
You know, Dr. Watson, this is a great honor for me. I read every story you've written. To me, Sherlock Holmes is almost like a god, you might say.
Oh, thanks very much.
One of these days, I hope to be a detective myself.
Indeed, and I think if you study me, you might learn a few pointers. I shall lose no time in investigating this matter. I may be able to expose a shocking scandal.
Hadn't you better leave that to Mr. Sherlock Holmes, sir? That's more in his line, isn't it?
Oh, rubbish, my good man. This is one case that I'm more than capable of handling myself. I shall call on Dr. Sturgeon as soon as his office opens in the morning.
I am Miss Stark, Dr. Sturgeon's secretary, and I'm afraid you can't see the doctor now. His first patient is due at any moment, and you haven't got an appointment.
But I'm a doctor myself. My name is Watson.
Nevertheless, you'll have to make an appointment.
Now, look here, my good woman.
I am not your good woman, and you cannot see Dr. Sturgeon.
But Sturgeon and I were friends at medical school together. Sturgeon the surgeon, we used to call him. That's funny, don't you think, Miss Stark?
Not at all. And what medical college did you attend, Dr. Watson?
The University of London.
Odd that you should have met Dr. Sturgeon. He studied at the University of Glasgow.
Oh, well, I was at Glasgow, too, for a while, now that you mention it.
You've wasted enough of my time. I don't know what you're after, but I think you'd better leave.
Good heavens. What was that?
Came from the doctor's office.
Come along.
Dr. Sturgeon.
He's choking. I'll loosen his collar.
Dr. Sturgeon. What is it?
He's trying to say something. But he's dead.
Look at the marks on his throat.
Great heavens, he's been strangled, Miss Stark. Stay here and guard the body. I'm going to fetch Sherlock Holmes at once.
Who is it? Oh, you're back again.
Yes, Miss Stark, this is Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
How do you do?
How do you do?
No one's been here since I left?
No. Patient came into the outer office, but I sent her away.
Splendid. Tell me, Miss Stark, is there another entrance to this office?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. The doctor had a private door from the outside leading into the laboratory in there. He always let himself in that way.
Did he ever admit patients by that private door?
Why should I answer your questions? You're not the police.
I appreciate your loyalty, Miss Duck, but I assure you that if you're trying to protect your dead employer, you'll find me to be more understanding than Scotland Yard.
Very well. What do you want to know?
I repeat my question. Did Dr. Sturgeon admit patients by his private door?
Yes, he did, Mr. Holmes. Sometimes. I never saw them, but I'd hear voices in there.
A perfect way of distributing drugs without anybody knowing.
Are you implying that Dr. Sturgeon...
Quite. You say that as he was dying, he kept pointing to a pad on his desk, Watson?
Yes, his arm's lying across it now.
Let's see if there's any message written on the pad. Ah, there is. It's an address. 116 Upper Swandam Lane, Millwall.
That's in the heart of Limehouse.
Precisely. An odd address to find written on the desk pad of a Harley Street physician. Watson, you're convinced that as the man was dying, he uttered the word peace?
Well, that's what it sounded like to me.
Peace?
Well, perhaps he meant that death would bring him peace after his mortal sin.
Possibly, Watson. And now to examine the marks on the dead man's throat.
I think I'll wait in the other room if you don't mind.
Looks as if he was strangled with a piece of rope.
Look more closely. Observe these traces of oil on the throat. And look at this.
By Jove, a long black hair. That means a woman did it.
No, Watson, I think not. The combination of long, black, oily hair and a Limehouse address would point to one obvious conclusion. Dr. Sturgeon was strangled with a Chinese cue.
Strangled with a cue? But how would that be possible?
That, my dear Watson, is our next problem. Tell Miss Stark to send for the police. Our work here's done.
We're going to Limehouse?
Certainly. As soon as we have adopted suitable disguises, we shall investigate the mystery of 116 Upper Swandam Lane. I pray that the answer to murder lies there.
Upon my soul, Holmes, you make the most convincing-looking dockhand.
Thank you, Watson. Now, let me see. 116. It's the next house.
There's a policeman standing just outside it. It's Constable Merriweather, the one I met last night.
Hello, Constable. Something happened? Never you mind. Just keep moving along.
We ain't doing no harm, mate. We now for just going down in a pig and whistle for partnering the mills at Middle Bidder. Ain't that right, Alfie?
Of course it is, Bertie. Then off you go, both of you.
Oh, can't a bloke stop and pass the time of day? Ain't you been a bit narky, chum? Hey, here, what's happened here?
Murder. That's what's happened. Now move along there. Murder. And at the address on Dr. Sturgeon's pad. Here, who are you?
Oh, it's all right, Merriweather. It's Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Well, blow me down. I'd never have recognized you, gentlemen. But what brought you to this address? I'll explain that later, Constable. Who has been murdered? A Chinese gentleman got himself done in.
Was he strangled?
I don't rightly know, sir. What do you mean you don't know? Surely the evidence of strangulation is perfectly easy to detect? Oh, I suppose it is. But you see, in this case, Mr. Holmes, the corpse ain't got no head.
In just a moment, we'll rejoin Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Leading hair specialists in this country constantly advise us to take better care of the hair we've got. And men, don't forget, one of the first requisites of handsome, healthy-looking hair is a hygienic scalp. So why buy just any hair dressing when you can enjoy the extra benefits of this highly specialized Kreml hair tonic? Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which has never been duplicated in any other hair tonic. That's why Kreml keeps hair in place longer, always looking neat and orderly. But Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking handsome. Kreml is simply great to lubricate a dry scalp. At the same time, it removes dandruff flakes and leaves your scalp feeling so alive and invigorated. And men, if your hair is so dry it breaks and falls when you comb it, Kreml actually helps condition the hair, in that it makes it feel softer, more pliable, and look as if it had some body to it. So men, buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Use Kreml daily for better groomed hair, for a more hygienic scalp. Kreml. Kreml Hair Tonic. Well, Dr. Watson, what happened next?
Well, my boy, we quickly entered the house and examined the scene of the latest tragedy. Constable Merriweather seemed to be in a seventh heaven of delight to realize that he was working on a case with the great Sherlock Holmes himself.
I'm glad you're here and no mistake, Mr. Holmes. I'm a little out of my depth in a case like this, and I don't mind admitting it.
Merriweather's a great admirer of yours, Holmes. He's read every story that I've written.
Indeed. You have a strong constitution, Constable. Though I will admit that this case presents as bizarre a problem as my friend has ever included in his rather sensational accounts.
What I can't understand, sir, is why they took the head.
For that matter, how was it stolen?
Before we theorize, let us assemble the facts. Has the body been identified, Constable?
Yes, sir. You see, he had a missing finger on one hand.
Then obviously the head was not stolen in order to make identification of the corpse difficult. Who is the victim?
A Chinese merchant by the name of Li Ming ran a shop downstairs in the basement.
Please describe the circumstances under which you discovered the crime.
Well, gentlemen, I was on my beat and I saw the dead man walk up the stairs from the basement and go into the house. That passed the time of day with me, he did. 2 houses down, I stopped to talk to the fishmonger outside his shop. I must have talked to him for 15 minutes or more.
What time was this, Merriweather?
Just after 10 o'clock, sir.
I see. Please continue.
Well, sir, all the time I was watching this house. Suddenly there was an hollering and a yelling, and I runs back to find the man lying in here with his head gone.
You were watching the house all the time, you say, Merriweather?
Yes, sir, just idle-like. But I'll swear no one went in or out.
Which means that somebody inside the house must be the killer.
That's what I think, Doctor.
Who are the other tenants?
Well, Mr. Holmes, on this floor there's an old Chinese lady, servant to the dead man she was. But she's half crippled with rheumatism, and I swear she couldn't have done it. But upstairs, there's a Chinese gentleman, Prince Fu Sen.
A prince? In these surroundings?
He's got quite a place, too.
Then you've already interviewed him?
Oh, yes, sir. He and his nephew are up there. Swore they didn't have nothing to do about it, but the young fella acted mighty suspicious-like. Perhaps you'd like to go up there, sir. I know you'd handle these foreigners better than me.
Very well, Constable. Let us visit Prince Fu Sen at once.
Come on in there, come on. Open up in the name of the law.
I'm afraid the name of the law doesn't appeal to them. Unless I'm much mistaken, they're barricading furniture on the other side of the door.
Yes, well, 3 good shoulders can take care of that, Holmes.
Good idea, Watson. Come on. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, there you go. Once more, Mr. Holmes, and we'll do it.
Keep out here. Keep out. You have no right to break in like this.
Oh, yes, we have, Mr. Addled Foo. You're under suspicion of committing murder.
I've already told you that I know nothing about it.
Then, in that case, Mr. Fu, why barricade the door?
Who in blazes are you?
I am Sherlock Holmes, and this is my colleague, Dr. Watson. Why, may I ask, is that partially packed Gladstone bag lying on the settee there? Were you thinking of leaving?
Of course I was.
You say you know nothing about this, then why admit guilt by running away?
Because I know this policeman suspected me. They call me an Eurasian, but I'm Western by instinct and education. Because the color of my skin compels me to live in this part of London, I knew that I was bound to be associated with a Chinese crime.
Despite your instincts and education, Mr. Fu, you seem to have a very poor opinion of British justice.
Huh.
Where is your uncle, Prince Fu Sen?
In the study.
You can lead the way if you don't mind, Mr. Fu. I'd like to keep my eye on you.
Oh, very well. Follow me.
I must say it's a sumptuous flat, Holmes. Some of these oriental furnishings must be priceless.
Yes, Watson. Quite incongruous in such a district.
Uncle, that policeman's back again. And there's some other men with him.
Won't you come in, gentlemen?
Prince Fu, this is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
Welcome to my humble abode, gentlemen. And perhaps I may be permitted to ask why 2 such famous men should be dressed like riffraff from the quayside?
We're investigating a murder, Prince Fu.
You have come to speak to me of murder, Mr. Holmes? But I have already told the constable that I have no knowledge concerning the tragedy of which he spoke.
Possibly, Prince Fu, but as we came in just now, the door was barricaded and your nephew's bag was packed. He admitted that he was going to leave.
Harold, my boy, what prompted you to such an action? You have no knowledge of the crime.
How could I prove it? You know as well as I do, Uncle, that a Eurasian hasn't got a chance.
Quiet, Harold. Mr. Holmes, you must forgive the boy. He is young and bitter. But he will learn in time that he is neither English nor Chinese. He is something far greater. He is a man.
Oh, the devil with your moralizing, Uncle.
Prince Fu, you are a man of intelligence, and I'll put our cards on the table. The dead merchant downstairs and a certain doctor in Harley Street, who was also murdered today, were undoubtedly both involved in peddling narcotics. I believe they were both killed by an associate who was afraid they might implicate him. That associate, from the constable's evidence, must be someone in this house. Prince Fu, I'm sure that you're wise enough to appreciate your position.
Mr. Holmes, in my own country, I devoted my life to fighting the ravages of drug traffic. Am I then to partake of its profits here in England?
Hello. Look here.
Oh, what is it, Constable?
On the desk. It's a doctor's visiting card.
Henry Sturgeon, M.D., 86 Harley Street.
Great Scott.
How do you account for this, Prince Fu?
I am completely bewildered. I have never seen that card before. Nor have I ever heard of a Dr. Sturgeon.
I suppose the wind must have blown it in, eh? Funny coincidence and no mistake. Shall I arrest him, Mr. Holmes?
No, Meriwether, though I would like you to remain here on guard. In the meanwhile, Watson and I have one vital task to perform.
What's that, Holmes?
We must search this house from basement to chimney top. We've got to find that missing head.
Holmes, I've searched the house with a fine-tooth comb. I'll swear the missing head isn't here.
So will I, old chap. That's why I gave you the job of searching for it.
And why the blazes waste my time while you go careering off somewhere else?
Oh, don't be angry with me, Watson. I needed you to create a diversion to cloak my real activities.
Huh? Where have you been?
I've been having a most illuminating talk with a certain tradesman by the name of Abbott Bloggs. Now I know who our double murderer is.
Good Lord. Who?
I suggest that we return to Prince Fu Tsen's flat upstairs. There I shall make the matter clear to you.
Mr. Holmes, am I to understand that you have solved this shocking crime?
Yes, Prince Fu.
Which one of them was it, Mr. Holmes?
Meriwether, you've been on this case from the beginning. You've been remarkably astute in some of your deductions.
Thank you kindly, sir. That's real praise coming from you, Mr. Holmes.
Surely you can see the obvious link between the two murders?
I think I can, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Sturgeon got himself strangled with a Chinese cue. Now, we know one of these two men did it. But Mr. Harold Fu wears his hair short like an Englishman. Only the prince has a cue. It must have been him.
It seems logical to me, Holmes.
And singularly lacking in logic to me, my friend.
I quite agree, Prince Fu. You see, Watson, you and Constable Meriwether overlooking the stolen head. Why was it stolen? What more likely reason than for the sake of its cue? And if the merchant's head was the weapon used to strangle Dr. Sturgeon, then the murderer wished to create the imaginary figure of someone wearing a cue. Therefore, the murderer did not have a cue.
Then it was Harold Fu.
Yes, it must have been.
That's utterly ridiculous.
Of course it is. You're overlooking one vital point. Limiting our suspects to the prince and Mr. Harold Fu depends entirely on Constable Meriwether's testimony, which means that we have 3 suspects. And the third is the constable.
Me? Oh, you're joking, Mr. Holmes.
Murder is not a subject for levity,
But Holmes, what motive could he have had?
The reason is obvious, Watson. Why did the murders occur immediately after you stumbled into this trafficking in narcotics? Because Meriwether himself was involved with the criminals. He overheard the man last night tell you about Dr. Sturgeon, and so Dr. Sturgeon had to die.
You mean that Meriwether was a member of this ring?
Of course. And a dishonest policeman could be a very valuable ally.
Mr. Holmes, you've got hold of the wrong end of the stick, and no mistake.
No, I haven't, Constable. You killed the merchant downstairs, decapitated the poor devil, and then used his cue to strangle Dr. Sturgeon. You lied about the time you'd seen him enter. You said it was after 10 o'clock.
Well, how can you prove it wasn't that time, Mr. Holmes?
I just talked to Abbott Bloggs, the fishmonger. He saw you for a moment at 8:30 this morning. He did not see you at 10.
Great Scott, then Meriwether killed the merchant first, went over to Dr. Sturgeon and strangled him, Probably dropped the head into the river and came back here and lied about the time.
Precisely. And on his first visit to this flat, he carefully planted one of Dr. Sturgeon's cards, knowing that it would incriminate Prince Fu. As cold-blooded and horrible a crime as ever I encountered.
You're a disgrace to the force,
Now,
Merriweather.
wait a moment. You still got no proof. My word's as good as that stinking fishmonger.
I doubt it. In any case, another word pins the crime on you. One from beyond the grave, the dying word that Dr. Sturgeon uttered.
He uttered the word peace.
And why should he say peace when he was pointing at the address and trying to indicate to us his murderer? No, he died while he was saying what sounded like peace. What he was trying to say was PC, which stands for Police Constable. He died as he tried to accuse his murderer, Police Constable Merriweather.
You'll never get me on the end of that.
Grab him, he's heading for the window. He must be 40 feet down into the street. It'll be a miracle if he hasn't broken his neck. I'll go down and see what I can do for him.
A doctor will save a man's life so that he may lose it on the gallows. A quaint custom.
Prince Fu, I must apologize to you and your nephew for the embarrassment and humiliation to which you've been subjected.
Mr. Holmes, I must confess that I never expected that my quiet sanctuary, my haven from the outside world, would be brushed by the wings of violence and sudden death. But I have seen justice done, and for the remainder of my poor life, I shall always revere the name of the man responsible, Sherlock Holmes.
Ladies, one of the greatest beauty authorities in this country is John Robert Powers. And the first beauty advice Mr. Powers gives his lovely Powers models is to use only Kreml shampoo to wash their hair.
And isn't he wise, Mr. Bell? Because Kreml shampoo is one shampoo that can be bought today that leaves the hair fairly teeming with natural, brilliant highlights. Yet never under any circumstances does Kreml shampoo ever dry the hair.
You see, Kreml shampoo is not a soapless shampoo. It's not a cream shampoo. It's entirely different.
How right you are, Mr. Bell. Why, after a Kreml shampoo, even dull, lifeless-looking hair actually radiates all its natural glossy luster. And Kreml shampoo has a built-in oil base, which helps keep the hair from becoming dry or brittle. In fact, it's wonderful to soften dry, brittle ends.
So, ladies, be smart. Always wash your hair with Kreml shampoo. It leaves the hair a vision of shining beauty, yet in no way hurts the texture. No matter how often you use Kreml shampoo, or over a long period of time, it's always so mild and gentle on your hair. And remember, ladies, no other shampoo leaves the hair sparkling with more natural, glossy luster. It's Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, now, let me see. What shall I tell you next week? Next week, Mr. Bell, I think I'll tell you a story about some strange deaths that happened, of all places, in the British Museum. I call it the singular affair of the ancient Egyptian curse.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Man with the Twisted Lip. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of California Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight, with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, inviting you to be with us next week at this same time, when Dr. Watson will tell us about the singular affair of the ancient Egyptian curse. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Well, this was a somewhat haunting episode, I do have to say, I had the idea for the solution early on. This is one of those mysteries where the way the character's portrayed gives him away a lot sooner than actually coming upon through following the clues. Well, now we turn to listener comment and feedback. Tim writes, thanks for the efforts. Oh, wait, I read that one yesterday. Philip writes, great show, finally got caught up. I've been listening to them from the beginning. My favorite shows are Pat Novak and Let George Do It. My kids, on the other hand, ages 8, 11, and 14, like Box 13 and Sherlock Holmes. I have to admit that all the shows, my least favorite is Sherlock Holmes, and I know there's nothing you can do about it, but I really don't care for the Kreml lads. Thank you for your hard work. And Philip Myers and Jennison Arison and Koa Myers. Well, thanks so much. Glad to provide something for the whole family, which also, of course, means that it'll provide something that not everybody will like every show. But appreciate everybody who sticks with us, and thanks so much for the comment. Then we have this comment from Doug. Hi, Adam. This is Doug from Elkridge, Maryland. Just wanted to say I enjoy the Great Detectives and Dragnet podcast very much. I equate you to Dr. Watson and myself to Joseph Bell or Harry Bartell in that we visit daily for a new adventure. That's very kind of you to say. That's the best Nigel Bruce I could do. Thankfully, I didn't opt to make my living as a Nigel Bruce impersonator. But thank you very much, seriously, Doug. Much appreciated. We do have, he also has a question. One question, do you know if President Reagan did any mystery radio work? That would be a hoot to hear that. Reagan's career on the radio, for the most part, was very limited. He stuck mostly to film work, and he did a few one-off guest spots on things like the Kraft Music Hall, and then appearing on radio programs that recreated movies, like Lux Radio Theater and Screen Guild Theater. It wasn't actually till the 50s he started doing some radio guest spots and some dramatic roles. And he did a couple episodes of Suspense. Now, one is called One and One's a Lonesome. And that one is, it could be defined in the mystery genre, but he actually plays a kind of an anti-hero in that one. A gambler and, who's plotting against his employer and the husband of his lover, which definitely a different role for Ronald Reagan, given he played mostly good guys on film. And then there's another one I've heard he did in 1954 called Circumstantial Terror, where it's kind of a wrong man gets charged type story. Wasn't really all that good, I didn't think. I think it was probably more the writing of that particular episode from 1954. But one thing that does kind of have promise, and I've not sat down and listened to it, is he did a Lux Radio Theater presentation where he took the spot played by Gary Cooper in the movie Cloak and Dagger. So I've not seen the movie, and I've not heard the Lux version of it. I've got it in my list of potential movie specials for an eventual listening to, and so we may bring that to you as a special someday, depending on how good it is. But we're coming actually up on another anniversary, and for that one we've already decided, and actually already recorded, our 400th episode special. It'll be the Screen Directors Playhouse version of D.O.A. with Eben O'Brien. So be sure to be listening. That'll be up on Saturday. Well, thanks so much for your comments. Much appreciated, Doug. And we'll be back next week with another Sherlock Holmes. And tomorrow, yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Well, before we do get started with today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, I do want to encourage you, as you make your travel plans, remember JohnnyDollarAir.com. JohnnyDollarAir.com is powered by Priceline. So you can name your own price on hotels, rental cars, airline tickets, and even more, or choose from published fares. Plus, the purchases you make at JohnnyDollarAir.com help support the great detectives of old-time radio. Well, today is another rehearsal recording, so be aware of that. And in addition to being a rehearsal recording, this episode is often mislabeled as the 100th episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Was not actually, because those show logs that label it number 100 include an episode, a one-shot documentary called Mind in the Shadows as a Johnny Dollar episode. And, of course, it's not, so this is really episode 99. But it's the Soderbury, Maine matter. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
This is Edward Whiteman, Mr. Dollar. I understand that Mr. Soderbury's death brought you here.
Yes, thanks for calling back. I tried to locate the constable, Fred Remen, I believe his name is.
Yes.
I haven't found him, so I thought I'd talk with you. You were riding with Mr. Soderbury when he was killed, is that right?
Yes, I was. I'll do everything I can to help you. And as a matter of fact, I just left Constable Remen.
Oh? Where is he? I'd like to see him.
He thinks he's found the place from which the shots were fired. The roof of Goodwin's store. I left him there less than 5 minutes ago. If you'll meet me in front of your hotel, I'll show you.
Thanks, Mr. Whiteman. I'll be down right away.
Edmund O'Brien, in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Britannia Life Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Soderbury, Maine matter. Expense account item 1, $42.45, airfare, car rental, and incidentals between Hartford and Soderbury. I, for one, had never heard of the town, but I found it a few miles from Portland, Maine. First 2 church spires, and then the small group of companion buildings, all set against a peaceful New England background. The first thing I noticed when I drove onto its single business street was that some bunting, The first thing I noticed when I drove onto its single business street was that some bunting and a few American flags were still standing, reminders of the ceremony during which its leading citizen, Gordon Soderbury, had been murdered. His personal secretary and assistant, Edward Whiteman, gave me the details after I met him in front of my hotel.
The ceremony? Oh, yes, you wouldn't have noticed entering town from the east. You didn't know about the factory?
No, I hadn't heard. New one?
No, Mr. Soderbury... No, Mr. Soderbury built it during the first year of World War II. He won some subcontracts from the shipbuilders and hoped to bring new wealth to the town. The ceremony was arranged this morning because it reopened. No, It could hardly have been called happy even before the tragedy.
Oh? The town was in favor of the factory?
Definitely not. We cross over here. These people are settled in their ways. The factory changed things. Outside men came into work, married local girls, and took them away. The farmers in the section lost the free labor of their sons to wages and had to hire older men.
I can see how it would upset a place like this. You think somebody could have been incensed enough over the reopening to have killed Mr. Soderbury?
I have no idea. I thought I should mention the feeling of the town. He and I were in the first of 3 cars driving to the factory. We were in the rear seat. Suddenly, he stiffened. He made this sound that... Well, I couldn't describe it. I didn't know what had happened. I don't think I heard the shots. He slumped forward. It was all over. This is Goodwin's store. Here.
Where was the car?
As closely as I can recall, it was directly in front. Straight out from here. Of course, the chauffeur stopped as soon as he realized what had happened. That'd be about up there, near the wagon.
There's a limousine, I hear. That's pretty close shooting. Were the windows up or down?
And they were down. Open, that is.
How do you get up on the roof of the store?
Well, there are stairs in the rear. Fred! Oh, Constable Remen!
Yes? Who's that?
Ed Whiteman. There's a man here who's been sent up from Connecticut to see you. Wants to ask you some questions. I have to go back to the office.
All right. What can I do for you?
Why did you pick this roof as the place where the shooting was done?
Because Mr. Soderbury's auto was just in front. And none of the others, 3 or 4 doors either side, have stairs to them.
That's good enough. Even resting a rifle barrel on the false front would be some pretty fancy shooting.
There have been some fair riflemen in the section for a good number of years now, if you know your history. I've been proud of their shooting at some of the matches we've had, but I can't say I'm so proud now.
You have any idea where to start?
There's been a man in my mind. Ben Southern.
He had a 16-year-old son killed by a bandsaw when the factory was open before. And now he's got another, young Ben. He'll reach 16 next week.
We walked to the Sutherland house, which was only about a quarter of a mile away, and Fred Remond gave me the background of the town. The Soderburys had been in control of the town and the surrounding country for more than 3 generations. Always they had been respected as thrifty, honest people, but never had they been well liked. The death of 53-year-old Gordon Soderbury meant the last of the male lineage. The sole survivor was his sister, Beth, many years his junior. The constable didn't seem impressed when I told him that potentially she was some $60,000 richer in cash in view of Gordon's insurance policy. We crossed a bridge to reach Ben Sutherland's house and found his wife waiting for us near the front door.
I know why you've come, Fred Remond. I heard about the trouble. Mr. Sutherland wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do such a thing.
Well, I didn't come to say right out that he did.
Where's your husband, Mr. Sutherland? Could we talk to him?
Who are you?
He's Mr. Dollar. Gordon Soderbury insured his own life. And this man is looking for the one that took it.
You'll both do better to go some other place with your questions.
We'd like to talk to your husband if you'll tell us where he is.
He ain't here.
And young Ben? Where is he?
He ain't here either.
Where did they go?
We wouldn't come here if we didn't have reason to. The constable told me your husband has made threats against Gordon Soderbury because of the death of your other son. You must have known that. So now you must understand why we're here.
Mr. Sutherland's a God-fearing man, and he wouldn't take the law into his own hands. You know that, Fred Remond. He calls you his friend.
I'm nobody's friend now.
If you're convinced he had nothing to do with the trouble, why don't you tell us where he is?
Because he told me not to. I keep my husband's word. He said, don't tell anybody, so I won't.
Well, when did he leave?
Last night.
He drove his truck. I know the sound of it. And if he'd come through town, it would have woke me. So he went the other way. I know that road. And where he'd pass through. Well, you don't leave me no doubt, Mrs. Sutherland. I'll have to put the state police after the truck.
Your business, what you have to do, not mine.
Don't you see you're making it worse by trying to hide the truth?
Hide the truth? I'm keeping a trust, young man. And if you don't know the worth of a trust, you don't know the worth of anything.
I went back with Constable Remond to his house where he lived alone and which doubled as an office. He phoned the description and license number of Sutherland's truck to his county superiors. And with the typical disinterest higher echelon seemed to maintain for lower echelon problems, they told him they wouldn't be able to take delivery of Soderbury's body until the following day. That left us with no better than a vague promise as to when we'd get such vital points as the caliber of the murder weapon, the entry angle of the fatal bullet, and the distance from which it was fired. Remond left me and went to talk with some of the townspeople, and that evening, soon after dusk, I went to the Soderbury home, hoping that his sister, Beth, would be in condition to receive me.
Yes?
Is Miss Soderbury in?
Yes, she's in.
I wonder if she feels well enough to see me.
Does she know who you are?
Not yet. I've been hired by her brother's insurance company to look into his death. Would you tell her that, please?
Oh, yes, of course. Won't you come in?
Thank you.
My name's Taft. I'm a friend of the family's.
Taft? My name is Dollar.
How do you do? Beth is in the sitting room. I'll leave it to your judgment. That is, I hope that the visit upsets her. You won't press her.
I won't.
All right. Beth?
Yes, come in, Lawrence. Well, who was... Oh,
This is Mr. Dollar. He's from the insurance company.
I see. Please, sit down.
Thanks.
I don't believe I quite understand, Mr. Dollar.
I'm an insurance investigator.
Oh, well, of course. Then would you prefer that we talked in privacy?
Well, I leave that up to you, Miss Soderbury.
I think Mr. Taft has stayed out of a sense of duty.
No, I haven't.
But at least this will give you a chance to leave for a bit, Lawrence. I'll be all right.
All right, Beth. I probably should run home for a while.
All right. And thank you ever so much, Lawrence. You've been terribly helpful.
I'll phone you in an hour. Good evening, Mr. Dollar.
Good night, Mr. Taft.
Now, Mr. Dollar, when did you arrive?
About 3 this afternoon.
Then undoubtedly you know more about this horrible thing than I do.
I'm afraid it's not very much. I've been working with Constable Remond. He wants to narrow it down to one of the local men who is against the factory reopening. But from what I've learned, it refuses to be narrowed very much on that basis.
Yes, I'm afraid you're quite right.
My brother was not famous for making friends. I say that at the risk of sounding cold and unemotional.
Emotion very seldom helps in my work.
Which is ferreting out the truth. I think Gordon understood what he was doing. I'm sure he did. He knew that our people detest change. They simply can't cope with it. Yet he forced it on them in 1942.
You feel yourself to be apart from your people, Miss Soderbury.
Yes, but only by reason of inheritance. Change was forced upon me, too. I was much younger than my brother. I was sent to school in England, but I came back and found it quite easy to forget and settle back into this tiny world.
I suppose the whole town did during the years after the factory closed.
Of course it did.
There was one particular man, Ben Sutherland. What do you think of him?
I don't know. I suppose his name is in everyone's mind tonight. The death of his son because of the hated factory, it had a violent reaction on him. And why not? He knew his son hadn't been born to stand in front of the machine that killed him. What does he say?
He can't be located. He left town last night. He took young Ben with him.
I hope it isn't he. He suffered enough. Oh, what could be troubling the general?
That's your dog?
Yes, General Scott. He didn't alarm when you arrived, did he?
No, it's the first I've heard from him.
Oh, someone else's animal, perhaps. But that seldom happens. He's well able to fend for himself. He's up.
By the time we got an oil lantern lit and I found the dog, he was moving silently toward the house, trailing what looked like a fractured front leg. I didn't know what to think when I told the surviving sister about it. She didn't seem frightened. But I couldn't help wondering whether her loyalty to her people wasn't misplaced, and whether the killer hadn't decided to eliminate all the Soderburys from the town that bore their name. I phoned Constable Remen as soon as I got back into the house, but it was a needless call. The sound of the shots in the quiet village had aroused everyone, and those who cared seemed to know right where to come. The first to arrive was Edward Whiteman, the dead man's assistant. Less than a minute later, the constable and Lawrence Taft. After we'd made another swing around the house without turning up anything, and after we'd satisfied ourselves that Beth Soderbury was well protected, Remen and I started back toward my hotel. Tell me about Beth and these others, Whiteman and this man Taft.
Which end do you want first?
Whiteman, he's not a native, is he?
No, he's from Bangor. He came here when Mr. Soderbury commenced to open up.
He's not an old friend like Taft, then?
Not hardly. Lawrence Taft was orphaned a good deal back. His folks died in a fire. Mr. Soderbury took him in, sent him to school in Brunswick. Taft helped him with the factory last time. He made a smart man out of him. But I wouldn't say a happy one.
How come?
Unless folks leave town and never come back, they're all mixed up. When they're twixt and between, like Taft is, it ain't natural.
That's pretty much what Beth told me.
She and him have been sort of thick off and on. Well, I'll cut across here. You got your directions straight?
Yeah. Where was Lawrence Taft this morning, Constable?
You mean when the trouble broke out?
That's right.
With Miss Beth, most likely. Why?
I guess we can check that, then.
You aren't thinking he killed Mr. Soderbury, are you?
I don't want anything to slip by us.
You don't know us, people. We pay what we owe if it takes all our life. The debt that was between them two was thicker than blood. Lawrence Taft would have killed himself before he would have killed Mr. Soderbury.
You know them better than I do.
That's the truth. I'll see you in the morning. I hope you sleep well.
The next day, things moved along a little more according to the book. The county men arrived before noon to remove the body for autopsy and ballistics examination, and soon after they left a report. The county men arrived before noon to remove the body for autopsy and ballistics examination, and soon after they left, a report came in from the state police. Ben Sutherland and his truck had been spotted leaving a town 5 miles away. A car escorted him to Soderbury, and the constable and I were at his house when he arrived.
Oh, Ben! Whatever happened to you? Ben!
Stop your nagging tongue. Go in the house where you're suited to be. I'll tend to your prying when I've a mind to.
Yes, Ben. I was only worried how you got hurt so horrible.
From the look of your face and your clothes, Ben, you've been through one thing or another.
Who might you be?
My name is Dollar. I'm an insurance investigator.
You come to help me defend the laws of the state, Ben.
And it's true, Fed, that Mr. Soderbury was shot and killed.
That's true.
When did you hear about it, Mr. Sutherland?
Those men that stopped me, they told me. They told me you wanted to talk to me about it, Fred.
That's true. And I don't take to it. Because we were friends.
You left town night before last, Mr. Sutherland. Where'd you go?
Do I have to answer this stranger's question?
It'll be better if you do.
That night I made up my mind what I had to do. I took young Ben away. That's my youngest son. I should have took my oldest boy. I knew I should have, but I listened to the talk about the factory and wages and such things. So I didn't take him. And that factory did. And I never got him back.
And you blamed Gordon Soderbury for it all these years?
No, I blamed myself. I knew what to do and didn't do it.
Didn't you make public threats against him?
That was a coward's talk. I talked big in front of my friends. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't kill him, Fred.
Where'd you go the other night?
I heard the talk start again. Young Ben talking about the factory, what the wages would buy. He'd be careful, he told me. And if he earned enough wages, he'd go to school like Lawrence Taft, crazy like his brother. And I put an axe handle to him and put him in the truck and carried him away.
Where, Mr. Sutherland?
He's on a farm where he belongs, up north, above Brighton. He's on a farm where he'll be safe.
How far away is it?
More than 20 miles.
What time did you leave?
After 9 o'clock.
You got there before midnight, then?
We slept in the truck. I left him with Alex Turner, sunup.
Then you had time to drive back here before the factory... ceremony started.
I went to Brighton.
Your face is scratched and cut. Your clothes are torn. How did that happen?
I fought with a man.
What man, and why did you fight?
I don't know what man. I don't know who. I fought because I was drunk. I went to Brighton to drink, and that's what I did. Not for 9 years has that happened.
You didn't come back here last night and have to fight off a dog at the Soderbury place?
I was in Brighton.
If you were, you'll probably be asked to prove it.
That's where I was.
And you'd better start remembering who you fought or who you were with. That's all for me, Constable. We were involved with approximately 280 people, most of whom were known to each other by sight, at least. The work Constable Remen had been doing without me had alibied most of them. Practically everybody had been on the street during the start of the ceremony and at the time of the shooting. Less than 40 were unaccounted for at 5:30 that afternoon when the county officers called in their report. Point of entry was just below the left armpit. The arm hadn't been touched. Angle of entry still made it look like the killer had fired from the roof of the store. And the murder weapon was identified as a not-too-common rifle, caliber .253. In an hour, the unaccounted-for citizens seemed to be trimmed down to 4 who owned that caliber rifle. Ben Sutherland was among them. It was close to noon the following day before the results of the test firing came back. The murder weapon wasn't among the rifles that were sent in.
Well, then I did something wrong. I am no great shakes at trouble like this.
It's not necessarily that we did something wrong, Constable. Maybe we just didn't do quite enough. One of those 253,000s got away from us.
A man's rifle is no secret here. He's proud of it.
What kind of rifle did Gordon Soderbury own?
Why?
The townspeople hated the factory. That's the motive we've given them. But none of them owned the murder weapon. Not even poor Ben Sutherland, with a stronger motive than anyone else. Unless he could have bought a rifle with just this in mind and kept it hidden.
I don't know.
We'll work on that, too. But for now, let's look at the people we've neglected. Edward Whiteman can't be involved because he was sitting next to the victim. You tell me Lawrence Taft is clear.
He wouldn't ever kill Mr. Soderbury.
Then the sister. She seems to belong more to the town than to the family. She didn't approve of what her brother was doing.
I can't hold a thing like that in my mind. We don't kill our kin here.
There are some that have. Will you do this for me? Will you get the 3 of them in here and keep them for an hour?
Well, how would I keep them?
I don't know. Write up a statement for them to sign, something about the ballistics reports. You can spend some time over them. Then ask the sister to go into detail about what she's going to do with the factory. I'll try to take less than an hour.
I ain't saying I can do it word for word, but I'll try. And if you'll write that statement, I'll be obliged. I ain't so good with a pencil.
It took me somewhat less than an hour, and what I found didn't make sense for a while. A rifle, well hidden beneath some torn clothes in the closet. The rifle's caliber matched that of the weapon that had killed Gordon Soderbury. I reached his home soon after his sister did.
Why, yes, he's here, Mr. Dollar.
How much do you know what lay behind the trouble the other morning?
I beg your pardon?
If you know who killed your brother, you'd better clear your skirts. Two people are going to tear up any lies you tell.
Mr. Dollar, if you know, please tell me.
Lawrence Taft.
Oh, no. No, he didn't. Why do you say that?
You better say that first line again.
Oh, no. No, he didn't. Why do you say that?
We've pretty much cleared the whole town of the murder. You can't do that without having something left over.
Oh, but you're wrong. Lawrence wouldn't kill my brother.
That's what I've been told. But would you react the same way if Edward Whiteman was dead and I told you Taft had killed him?
I'm sorry, I don't... Lawrence, come here.
I'm here, Beth. But listen.
It isn't true. It isn't true, is it?
I heard what you said, Mr. Dollar. What reason would you have to say anything like that?
I just left your house. In it, I found a rifle and some clothing that was torn by the dog last night when you evidently came back to overhear what I said to Beth.
Lawrence.
You didn't have any reason to kill Gordon Soderbury, did you?
No, I didn't.
But you hated Whiteman, didn't you?
What reason would I...
The factory, for one. You were important last time, but you were left out the other morning, isn't that right?
Oh, always the factory. What difference did it make to you, Lawrence?
Remen told me you people always paid your debts. Maybe that was it. That an outsider came in and forced him out so he couldn't prove himself. Maybe he was afraid Whiteman would force out of your life, too. I don't know.
Lawrence, you didn't think that I...
Yes.
You did try to kill Edward Whiteman, didn't you?
Yes.
And Gordon Soderbury was killed by mistake.
Yes.
Lawrence, no.
I didn't mean to. I know I'm weak and I'm mixed up. I don't know where I belong, but I knew he couldn't stay here. Whiteman was taking my place, and I knew people were laughing at me because I failed. I did try to kill him. Thought it was for you. I didn't know until later. Later I found out. Later, found out it was Gordon. It was dead. Gordon. I owe him everything.
Expense account item 2, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $84.90. Remarks? None. Except that maybe the now wealthy Beth Soderbury may have been right. That anybody with generations of background in an insular village like that does take a gamble when he comes out. To say nothing of a half-generation Hartfordian when he goes in. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien can soon be seen in the Paramount Pictures production Warpath. Featured in tonight's cast were Robert North, Howard McNear, Virginia Gregg, Larry Thor, Sammy Hill, Herb Butterfield, and David Light. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, was transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Bob Lamont inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Welcome back. Well, there's something quaint about recordings, but to be honest, I can't wait to get back to listening to the finished product. There were several spots in the United States that were considered mysterious. And I think New Orleans, we've kind of talked about before, and the whole state of Louisiana, and then the rest of the South, southeast area, would be sites for mysterious small towns and a lot of radio and television productions. But probably right after that is New England, where there was this sense of a steadfastness, maybe some antiquity, and maybe a sense that New England was kind of different from the rest of the country. Certainly, in 1936, Maine and Vermont were actually the only states that didn't vote to re-elect President Roosevelt to a second term. So clearly, this was a this was something that got featured on quite a few radio programs. And of course, fans of old radio will also recognize another great detective actor. We've heard Jack Moyles, a.k.a. Rocky Jordan, in a couple episodes. Here we get to hear Larry Thor playing the role of the murderer. And of course, Larry Thor was also at the time also active as the lead in Broadway's My Beat. But this was radio, and you worked for CBS and did what you could to help out the network. Well, we turn now to listener comments and feedback. Benjamin writes, the Android app is nice. I was using a podcast client up until the end of March, and then it stopped updating, so I figured I would try this. Well, Ben, good luck with that. Glad you're enjoying the app. Chris writes in, this podcast is top-notch. You can always tell Adam puts his heart and soul into the broadcast. He even does it while sick. No malingering here. Excellent broadcast and terrific audience interaction. Okay, and Adam, in order, let George do it. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, Nero, Wolfe, the Abbotts, Sherlock, Holmes, with a strong protest of the hair tonic commercials. And also, your book was a wonderful read. Planning a sequel? Have a great day, and thank you for what you do. Thanks so much for the comments. I've been kicking around an idea for a sequel. I've tried to resolve myself to just finishing up the nonfiction detectives book that I'm working on about great detective and lessons from great detectives before I tackle a sequel. But I've got some ideas kicking around, and we'll see what comes of them. A comment from Afghan Sand Sailor. Can't wait to hear what you have in store for us next. Pat Novak, let George do it. The Abbotts and the Thin Man are my favorites. Don't care too much for Sherlock, but I listen for your comments. I've noticed when you speak slower, your voice comes across much clearer, and it sounds like that's something you're doing intentionally. That's probably been one of my, and that's a good point, Phil, probably been one of my big challenges in speaking, is the feeling that if you're excited about something, the best thing to do is to get very, very loud and very, very fast. And I do have to constantly work with that. I said I've signed up for your podcast and look forward to listening to your political viewpoints as well. Keep up the good work, and I'll be praying for you. Well, thank you so much, Phil. Much appreciated. And Daw says, yes, hi, Adam. Yes, praises to you for being determined enough to not just put it out there the way you do, but putting it all out there. While some may sit in their cozy corners out of the line of fire, you've taken some large broadsides and keep coming back smiling. I think you do a wonderful job, and I hope that you keep it up for the next 100 years or so. Love the show. Well, in addition, I hope that I would be healthy enough to do that. Of course, I think at my age, the good news is that I'll probably run out of radio detectives long before I run out of life. But thanks so much for the comments. I will say that the number of negative comments has dropped off for both the Great Detectives and the Old Time Dragnet show in the past year or so. And I think part of that is just a natural part of finding an audience who enjoys what we do on the program. When you're first out there, you get a lot of folks who may not actually be interested in what you have to do. But it's kind of turned around over time. Thanks so much for the comments. Two quick ones here. Hey, love the show. Keep up the good work. And another iTunes review, the only thing I listen to anymore. All right, well, that'll actually do it. We will be back on Monday with the last episode of the Abbotts. But today also marks our 400th episode. So in celebration of that, tomorrow you're going to get a little bit more. Edmund O'Brien, we mentioned it yesterday. Join us for D.O.A. On the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio, our 400th episode special. And then, for those of you who follow the videos, be watching on Sunday when we'll get to see a Let George Do It radio script brought to television in an episode of I'm the Law. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. It's our 400th episode special, and we have got a treat for you today, and we'll be talking about that in a bit. If you have a comment, send it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives, where we have more than 700 fans. Well, I do also want to let you know that you can follow our Golden Age and detective story commentaries right on your Kindle. Just get the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio article subscription. You have 2 weeks free, and you get all the articles that we write about right onto your Kindle. And while you're over in the Kindle store, be sure to check out Tales of the Dim Night. It's a great story with a lot of homages to Golden Age superheroes, as well as a wonderful family story I think you'll enjoy. Well, once again, we are going to share with you a radio adaptation of a movie. And this is one we've actually played a few months back on the video theater portion. However, I know not everybody watches the videos, so I wanted to bring you this radio version. The movie that we're going to be playing here, this is the Screen Directors Playhouse, a presentation over NBC of D.O.A. D.O.A. is really a fascinating film. It's one of my favorites in this noir genre. I described the plot to some coworkers in the Daily Message, and I have more interest in that than any of the other things I mentioned in passing. It's a fascinating plot, mixing elements of mystery and tragedy, as well as a little bit of romance in one of the great hard-boiled movies of all time. And we get to hear Edmund O'Brien, our current Johnny Dollar, in the lead role. This was from June 21st of 1951. So it aired right in the neighborhood of the Johnny Dollar episodes we've been listening to recently. So this will work perfect. I hope you enjoy it. It's the Screen Directors Playhouse presentation of D.O.A.
Screen Directors Playhouse. Star, Edmund O'Brien. Production, D.O.A. Director, Rudolph Mattei.
This is the Screen Directors Playhouse, one of the weekly features on NBC's All-Star Festival of comedy, music, mystery, and drama. Brought to you by the makers of Anacin for fast relief from the pain of headache, neuritis, and neuralgia. By RCA Victor, world leader in radio, first in recorded music, first in television. And by Chesterfield, always milder, better tasting, cooler smoking, plus no unpleasant aftertaste. And that's the biggest plus in cigarette history. Tonight, the Screen Directors Playhouse is pleased to present for the first time on the air a dramatic study in human conflicts. Our story is D.O.A., and our stars Edmund O'Brien with Peggy Castle. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here is Edmund O'Brien.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A little personal background about D.O.A., the production we are dramatizing tonight. To me, it possesses one of the finest and most original stories presented on the screen. I can honestly say that I accepted this assignment before I was through reading the script. I hope you will enjoy listening to this hour of intrigue as much as I enjoyed making it.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. And now, before we present the first act, here's a word from the makers of Anacin. If you suffer from the pains of headaches, neuritis, or neuralgia, you should discover what many thousands have known for years, that Anacin brings you incredibly fast, effective relief. Anacin is like a doctor's prescription. That is, Anacin contains not just one, but a combination of medically proven active ingredients in easy-to-take tablet form. Probably at some time you have received an envelope containing Anacin tablets from your physician or dentist. Thousands of people have been introduced to Anacin this way. Try Anacin yourself the next time you suffer from the pains of a headache, neuritis, or neuralgia. You'll be delighted at how quickly relief can come. Anacin is spelled A-N-A-C-I-N.
Your druggist has Anacin in handy boxes of 12 and 30 tablets, and economical family-sized bottles of 50 and 100 for your medicine cabinet. Ask for Anacin today. Now, the first act of the Screen Directors Playhouse presentation of D.O.A., starring Edmund O'Brien in his original role of Frank Bigelow, with Peggy Castle as Paula. Shattering the unusual midnight quiet of Spring Street in Los Angeles were the footsteps of a lone figure. Fatigued footsteps climbing the mountain of stairs leading to the police department. As the inevitable green lights cast their rays in the darkness, outlined was the figure of a young man suddenly grown old, his face haggard, worn, unshaven. Then, as if the effort were superhuman, he opened the door of an office marked Homicide.
What's on your mind, Bud?
I want to see the man in charge.
Oh, in here.
Captain,
Well, what can I do for you?
I want to report a murder.
Sit down. Where was this murder committed?
San Francisco. Last night.
Who was murdered?
I was.
Hand me that file, O'Banion.
I don't have much time, Captain. Do you want to hear me out or don't you?
Your name Bigelow, Frank Bigelow?
Yeah, how'd you know?
O'Banion answered the San Francisco APB. Sent it direct to Captain Morse at Homicide. Tell him we have Frank Bigelow. Yes, sir. Take care for a drink, Bigelow? You look beat.
No, I haven't the time.
Okay. Tell it any way you like.
I live in Banning, on the way to Palm Springs. I'm a CPA, certified public accountant. Well, a couple of days ago, I decided I needed a vacation to make up my mind whether or not I'd marry my secretary, Paula, and San Francisco was my selection. Paula and I were having a drink at a bar when I broke the news.
I want to go with you, Frank.
Now, look, Paula, I'm just going on a little vacation. I told you that.
Well, you want to go without me, don't you?
I'd only be gone a week.
I suppose you just made up your mind to take this little vacation at 9 o'clock this morning.
Now, don't be like that, Paula.
Don't be like what? You just drop a little announcement that you're going away. Not tomorrow or next week or next month, but today. No explanations, nothing. And I'm supposed to swallow the excuse that you need a little vacation.
I just feel that I've got to get away from this town for a few days, that's all.
Get away from this town or get away from me?
Oh, I wish you'd try to understand, Paula.
How can you ask me to understand anything like this? No, I'm sorry, but I don't understand. Go to San Francisco. But don't expect me to be waiting for you when you get back. I'm leaving right now.
Paula, please, turn around. Look at me.
Why do you hurt me like this, Frank?
I don't want to hurt you ever. You know that.
Then why don't you be honest with me? As honest as I am with you. Do you have to go?
I have to go, Paula. I know what I'm doing.
All right, go. Go anywhere you like. You can go to blazes for all I care.
Paula.
Yes, I know. I'm being foolish.
Come on now. Give us a little kiss, huh?
I know what's going on inside of you, Frank. You're just like any other man, only a little more so. You have a feeling of being trapped, hemmed in, and you don't know whether or not you like it.
Then surely you can understand why I need this week away, Paula, for your good as well as mine.
Yeah. I thought by now we'd be married.
I want to be honest with you. I care for you too much not to be honest with you. I'm as concerned about your happiness as much as I am for my own, even more so.
Oh, I know you had one bad experience. Frank, I know all about it. Let's not go through that again.
But, Paula, you don't know what it can do to two people. And the woman always seems to get hurt more than the man. I don't want you to get hurt, darling. More than anything else in the world, I don't want you to get hurt. Come on now. Drink up.
Sure. You know I'd be lying if I said that I liked it. But I'm convinced deep inside of me that you must go.
The hotel in San Francisco was hopping the night I arrived. My door was open, and across the hall, a party was in progress. From where I sat, I caught a glimpse of a beautiful blonde babe doing the rumba and giving me the eye at the same time. Meanwhile, I was returning a rush call from Paula in Banning. Paula?
Oh, hello, Frank. How was the trip?
Fine, just fine.
Having a miserable time, I hope.
I can't tell yet. I just got in.
What was that?
Oh, it's market week. Place is crawling with traveling salesmen. Why the rush call?
Oh, yes. Did a Mr. Phillips phone you? Eugene Phillips of Los Angeles.
No.
Well, he will. Phoned the office 3 times today. Said he wanted to get in touch with you immediately. To use his exact words, it's most urgent and imperative that he reach you at once.
What did he want?
Well, I don't know. But he sounded deep, dark, and mysterious. I'm quite agitated about something.
Phillips, have we ever done any business with him?
Not unless you've been keeping it a secret from me. I looked through all the accounts.
Well, why did you tell him where to reach me? I'm supposed to be on a vacation.
So you told me. And so I told him, dear heart, but the gentleman didn't seem to respect your temperamental moods the way I do. He was very insistent that he speak to you before it's too late, as he put it.
Well, you take care of it. Tell him I have changed my plans and you don't know where I can be reached.
He won't talk to me.
Well, call him back. If it's as important as he says, he'll talk to you. If not, he can just wait until I get home.
My, aren't we adamant this evening? All right, shall do. And, Frank,
Yeah?
I don't quite know how to say this.
Say what?
Well, what I want to say is there's nothing you can do that you ever have to feel guilty about.
Sure. Thanks, Paula. I'll call you tomorrow.
Oh, say, friend, I'm awful sorry to bother you. Will you mind if I use your telephone?
Oh, go right ahead.
Oh, thanks. Thanks so much. I'm right across the hall. One of the boys using my phone. Been on it half an hour.
Really?
Yeah, I just want to call downstairs.
Oh, that's all right. Go ahead.
Room service, please. Things sure pick up last few days, isn't it? You write up much business?
No, I'm not here on business.
Hello, room service. Sam Haskell, room 617. That's all right. Would you send up 3 more bottles of scotch, huh? Some ice, please. Thank you. You here alone, friend?
Yes, I just got into town.
Oh, sir, why don't you join us for a drink, huh?
No, thanks. I don't want to barge in on your party.
Oh, that's nonsense. It's not a party, just a few of the boys entertaining some buyers. Come on in. Come on.
Well...
Come on.
Well, all right, if you're sure I'm not intruding.
Certainly. Glad to have you. I know just how it is to be alone in a strange city.
Say, that blonde doing the rumba. It's my type.
Sorry, friend. My wife.
She may have been Sam's wife, but that isn't the way she behaved after a few drinks. The hotel room became a little too confining, so the party adjourned to a nightclub featuring the fisherman, Crown Prince of Jive. Why I went along, I still don't know. I don't like other men's wives, but Sue didn't believe me, and her husband Sam was stabbing me with looks, so I made for the bar.
Stay with it, fisherman. Get it, fisherman.
Ah, blow up a stall, man.
Yeah, write it out.
Don't bug me. I'm being enlightened. I got eyes.
Ooh, really cool.
Say, bartender.
Yeah? What'll it be?
Scotch, short water, no ice.
Coming up.
Ride it, Dad. Ride it.
Nice, quiet place.
Yeah. What'll it hitch the pitch in about an hour? They really wash a moldy fig.
A what?
Moldy fig. Yeah, 6 bits.
Yeah, thanks. Keep the change.
Cool, really cool.
Say, who's that glamour girl at the end of the bar?
One of the chicks that roosts regular. She's Bobgone, George.
Huh?
Oh, you ain't hip. Bobgone means she's gone for this stuff. You know, just between you and me, I don't get it. But I gotta listen to it.
I got eyes.
What's the matter with him?
He's flipped. He's tipping his topper.
Come down, Jack. Don't bug me, boy.
Well, that glamour girl's giving me the eye. She alone?
Oh, sure. Real society. Always comes in alone. Drives a big convertible, wears a mink coat, and knows everybody, but she always comes alone.
Ah, that's all I wanted to know. Pardon me.
I'm sent. Man, I'm sent.
I know you're sent, brother. Just let me get past.
Don't bend the stand. I'm getting enlightened. Turn on the light.
Well, Hello.
Dig that, fisherman. That's really silk, isn't it?
Can I buy you a drink?
Oh, sure, thanks. Leo, give me a blast.
I left my blast up at the end of the bar, Leo.
Coming up.
I've never seen you here before.
I've never been here before.
Here's your scotch, mister, and a stinger for the lady.
Thanks. Well, drink up.
I guess we better jive and lots more drive.
Say, Leo, this isn't my drink. Mine is scotch.
Oh, sure it is. You saw me pour it.
Oh, come on now. Bottoms up.
Okay. This is crummy stuff. Give me a fresh one, Leo.
Anything you say.
Oh, just feel those vibrations. Man. Hey, you don't get your kicks out of this, do you?
Well, I hate to admit it, but I don't.
Then why do you stay here?
I haven't any place else to go.
Oh, I know, baby. You're lonely in a big city. You don't have to go into a routine with me. I like good company, too.
Look, do me a favor, will you? There's a girl coming over here. I don't want any part of her or her husband. How about going some other place, huh?
Let me think about it.
Think fast, will you? She's almost here.
Why don't you meet me later?
All right, where?
Well, call me at this number later. It's my next stop. I got a band there that'll really send you.
Okay, let me think about it. I ducked out of the club and headed for my hotel room. When I arrived, I found a basket of flowers waiting for me. Attached to it was a note from Paula. I'll keep a light burning in the windows. Sweet dreams. So I tore up the glamour girl's number and I went to bed. It's funny how conscience can ruin a good thing. I dreamt that night that Paula and I were married, as happily as any two lovers could be. The world was ours. I vowed then and there that in the morning I was going back home and beg Paula to marry me. But that never happened, because I was murdered.
And now, here's a word from RCA Victor. Now you're assured of top performance year after year from your RCA Victor television receiver. Now you can buy the RCA Victor factory service contract for expert installation and maintenance. And it's practical, reliable. You can depend on it to keep your RCA Victor receiver in perfect shape. And here's why. You get installation with built-in antenna, expert prompt service by RCA's own technicians, replacement of any part or tube, including the picture tube, for 1 full year. Unlimited service for the first 90 days. And then service at $5.95 per call for the balance of the year. So make up your mind to buy RCA Victor television. And make it a point to see the superb Hillsdale, a magnificent new television console. And buy the RCA Victor factory service contract when you buy the Hillsdale. We continue with the second act of D.O.A., starring Edmund O'Brien with Peggy Castle.
All through that night, I tossed fitfully. I couldn't sleep. My body began to ache. Pains began shooting through my head. My stomach felt as if it were on fire. In the morning, I tried to reason with myself that I'd had too many drinks. But that wasn't true. At breakfast, I couldn't stand the sight of food. Then the pain in my stomach returned. Only this time, the muscles contracted, and I could barely move. So I went to see a doctor who examined me and took a set of x-rays.
You're not married, are you, Bigelow?
That's right.
Do you have any family, relatives? Anyone in San Francisco?
No one. I don't know a soul in San Francisco.
Well, where is your home?
Why all the questions? What's this all about?
You must steel yourself for a shock, Mr. Bigelow.
Oh, what is it? What are you trying to tell me?
The test reveals a luminous toxic matter in your body.
What is that exactly?
It's a deadly poison that attacks the vital organs.
Deadly poison?
I have no alternative but to tell you this. Your system has absorbed sufficient toxin to be fatal.
What? What are you saying?
Now, please understand, this is difficult for me, too, Mr. Bigelow. I can realize what you're undergoing. I wish there was something I could do for you. But unfortunately, I can do nothing. There's nothing anyone can do. This is one of the few poisons of its type for which there is no antidote.
How long do you think I have?
You don't have very long, Mr. Bigelow.
How long?
A day, a week, 2 weeks at the outside. It's hard to say exactly.
It's impossible. I don't believe it. I don't believe a word you've been telling me. You've made a mistake. It could be a mistake. It could be a mistake, couldn't it? Answer me.
There's been no mistake, Mr. Bigelow.
Do you realize what you're saying? You're telling me that I'm dead. Do you think you can explain away my life in just a few words? I don't even know who you are. Why should I believe you?
Please try to be calm, Mr. Bigelow. I want to offer every assistance I possibly can.
Assistance? Who wants your assistance? Who wants anything from you? I think you're crazy. You're nothing but a fake. That's what you are. A phony. I'm going to see another doctor. Do I have luminous poisoning, Dr. McDonald?
Yeah. You've got it all right. Your system has already absorbed it.
Are you sure? Are you absolutely certain? Couldn't you be mistaken?
Here, I'll show you. Let me put the light out and darken the room. There it is. The toxin is actually luminous in the dark. No, there's no doubt about it, Bigelow.
I don't feel very sick. My stomach is just a little upset. Maybe it's not as bad as you think.
That's characteristic. With a heavy jolt, you go suddenly in a matter of hours. But if the stuff is taken in a lesser quantity, you'll last a while, and then...
And then? Give it to me straight, Doctor.
A number of things are involved. The systemic condition of the individual, the amount consumed, exertion.
Yes?
You won't feel too bad for a while. Then it'll happen suddenly. A day, 2 days, a week at the most.
A day? 2 days?
There's nothing that can be done now. If it had been caught in time, your stomach could have been washed out. But you've had it in you for some time now. At least 12 hours, haven't you, Bigelow?
I don't know.
You don't know? Don't you know how you got it?
No.
And this was no accident. Somebody knew how to handle this stuff. That wax is tasteless and odorless. And from the alcoholic content of your body, you must have gotten it in liquor.
I was drinking last night.
I'll arrange for your admission to the hospital immediately. Of course, I'll have to notify the police. This is a case for homicide.
Homicide?
I don't think you fully understand, Bigelow. You've been murdered.
Bigelow! Where are you going? Bigelow, come back! I couldn't wait. In a frenzy, I ran down the hall and into the street. I ran wildly down the street, trying to outrun my fears and the terrible realization that someone hated me enough to murder me. Without direction or destination, I ran blindly through the streets until, exhausted and spent, I stopped at a newsstand to gasp. The magazine banners swam at me, mocking, ironic, implacable. Life. Life. I was surrounded by it, but not a part of it. And I knew then that I'd spend the little time left in finding the man who had murdered me. With whom had I had a drink? The glamour girl at the Fisherman's? No, I'd torn up her address. No, someone had switched my drink while I was talking to her, but who? Who? Sam, the traveling salesman. But was he jealous enough to kill? I hammered on his door, but he was gone, checked out. Then my own telephone rang. Hello?
Please, Mr. Bigelow. My eardrum.
Oh. Hello, Paula.
Your enthusiasm overwhelms me. Why didn't you phone me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to, Paula. I've been busy.
Visiting the museums, no doubt. What's happening out there that's exciting or different?
Nothing. Not a thing.
I'll bet you wish you'd never gone. but you're too stubborn to admit it.
Sure.
You know, if you'd like me to come up, I can pack a toothbrush and leave right away.
No!
Well, you don't have to snap my head off. You could at least make a pretense of missing me.
Of course I miss you. But I just don't feel like talking about it right now. I'll call you later, Paula.
Don't strain yourself.
Don't be angry.
You phone me sometime when you feel more like talking. And by the way, I call that Mr. Phillips back.
Phillips?
Yes, you know, the man who tried to reach you. Well, I'm afraid you'll never know why it was so important that he speak to you. His office said he died yesterday.
Died? When?
Yesterday. So you won't have to bother your little head about him anymore. You can just go ahead and have fun.
Paula, what did he die from?
How would I know, Frank? I suppose he died from whatever people usually die from. What are you getting so excited about? You said you didn't even know.
Where's his office located?
Well, what's the difference? You can't talk to him now. I told you the man...
Paula, will you stop talking so much and give me the man's address?
Oh, all right. It's the Phillips Importing and Exporting Company, Bradbury Building.
That's Los Angeles?
Say, this really is a switch. How come you're so interested all of a sudden?
If you want to reach me, I'll be in Los Angeles. The Lancashire Hotel.
Are you out of your mind?
I've got to hurry, Paula. You were Mr. Phillips' secretary, Miss Foster. Did he have a partner, manager, anyone I could speak to?
What is it in regard to?
It's an urgent matter.
Well, perhaps Mr. Halliday can help you. This way, please.
Oh, who's Halliday?
He's our comptroller. Mr. Bigelow to see you.
Oh, come right in. Oh, Mr. Halliday, Mr. Phillips phoned my office yesterday. I've come to find out what it's all about.
You know that Mr. Phillips died yesterday?
Yes.
I don't quite understand. If he phoned you, certainly must have told you what it was all about.
He didn't talk to me. I wasn't at my office when he called, and he wouldn't tell my secretary.
I'm afraid I can't be of much help, Mr. Bigelow. I've no idea why Mr. Phillips tried to reach you. I'm sorry you had to make this trip for nothing.
Huh? How did you know I made a trip? I didn't say anything about a trip. I merely said that he called my office. My office could be here in Los Angeles.
Miss Foster.
Yes?
Didn't you mention something yesterday about Mr. Phillips speaking to Mr. Bigelow in San Francisco?
I said that he had phoned Mr. Bigelow's office in Banning, but that Mr. Bigelow was in San Francisco. I'm sorry if you misunderstood me.
Do you know why Mr. Phillips called?
No, I don't.
All right. Thank you, Miss Foster. Now, Mr. Bigelow, you can readily understand that we've been somewhat upset around here. Mr. Phillips' sudden death was quite a shock. Now, if you don't mind.
Did Phillips have a family, a wife, anyone who might be able to help me?
Now, see here, Bigelow. You can't intrude on people at a time like this just to satisfy some curiosity.
This isn't just some curiosity, Halliday.
Then I suggest you wait a week or so.
I can't wait.
I'm afraid you'll have to.
Well, I guess I can get my information out of a city directory.
You're a pretty aggressive fellow, Bigelow. Are you quite sure that this is as important as you make it appear to be?
It's important.
Mrs. Phillips lives at the Sunset Arms Apartments.
Thank you.
I needn't tell you that Mrs. Phillips is under a strain. I suppose you're capable of using a little more tact with her than you've demonstrated with me.
Sure. Well, by the way, what was the cause of Phillips' death?
Suicide. He leaped from the window of his apartment.
Come in, Mr. Bigelow.
How'd you know my name?
I'm Stanley Phillips, Eugene's brother. Halliday phoned you were coming. This is my sister-in-law, Mrs. Phillips.
How do you do?
How do you do? I'll try to be as brief as possible, Mrs. Phillips.
I'm afraid I can't be of any help to you, Mr. Bigelow. I haven't the slightest idea why my husband wanted to speak to you.
I see. Well, I guess Halliday covered about everything. Mrs. Phillips, did your husband ever mention anything to you about me? Anything at all?
No. I don't recall Eugene ever having mentioned your name.
Look, I know that this is none of my business, but it could be of vital importance to me. Why did your husband commit suicide?
How dare you? How dare you?
You're not exactly the most diplomatic person in the world, are you, Bigelow? Let me walk you to the elevator. Were you a friend of my brother's?
I never met him.
My brother was in a jam. Pretty bad jam. He was arrested 2 days ago.
What?
Yes. He sold some iridium to a dealer by the name of Majak. It's a rare metal, very costly. Anyway, the iridium turned out to be stolen.
My brother faced a stiff prison term.
Men have committed suicide for less.
Yes, I know. That's how the police felt about it. What puzzles me, though, is this crooked deal. Knowing my brother, you'd hardly say he was the type of man who'd be mixed up in anything like that, would you?
I said that I didn't know him.
That's right, so you did. I forgot. Now, what's it all got to do with you, Bigelow?
I don't know.
Oh, Bigelow, let's come clean with each other, huh? Surely you must have some idea, some inkling why my brother was so desperate to contact you?
Not the least idea.
That's very odd. If you don't have any idea, then how could it be of such vital importance to you?
You seem to know all the other answers, Phillips. Maybe you know the answer to that one yourself.
Now, here's a tip for discriminating smokers. Science discovered it. You can prove it. No unpleasant aftertaste when you smoke Chesterfields, the biggest plus in cigarette history. Science discovered this fact. Of all cigarettes tested, Chesterfield, and only Chesterfield, leaves no unpleasant aftertaste. You can prove it. Smoke a pack of Chesterfields. They're always milder, better tasting, cooler smoking. And Chesterfield is the cigarette that leaves no unpleasant aftertaste. That's the biggest plus in cigarette history. Science discovered it. You can prove it. Buy Chesterfields today.
You are listening to the Screen Directors Playhouse, one of the weekly features on NBC's All-Star Festival, brought to you by the makers of Anacin for fast relief from the pain of headache, neuritis, and neuralgia, by RCA Victor, world leader in radio, first in recorded music, first in television, and by Chesterfield, always milder, better tasting, cooler smoking, plus no unpleasant aftertaste. And that's the biggest plus in cigarette history. The Screen Directors Playhouse presentation of D.O.A. starring Edmund O'Brien with Peggy Castle will continue in just a moment after a brief pause for station identification. This is the Screen Directors Playhouse. We continue with the third act of D.O.A., starring Edmund O'Brien in his original role of Frank Bigelow, with Peggy Castle as Paula.
Ever imagine yourself in a plane about to crash? Ever feel the cold steel of a gun pressed against your brain? Ever hear a doctor tell you you're going to die? Suddenly, momentarily, a day, 2 days, a week at the most? Why did it have to happen to me? Why was I murdered? Why was I sitting here in my hotel room, waiting for the sands of time to run out? Hello?
Well, Sinbad, I just about given you up for lost. Now, do you mind telling me why you rushed down to Los Angeles?
I can't explain now, Paula. It's much too involved.
What's going on, Frank? You don't even sound like yourself.
I'm just a little tired, but I'm glad you called, Paula. I miss you.
Oh, Frank, I can't tell you how good it is to hear you say that. Here I was worrying that I'd lost my charm. When are you coming home, Frank?
I'll be home soon.
I'll go right out and get a permanent, so I'll be pretty when you see me. Hey, guess what? I found Philip's name in your notarial ledger.
Notarial ledger?
Of all places. I remember now I made the entry myself. You had notarized the paper one morning before I came to work.
What kind of a paper?
A bill of sale for a George Reynolds. It was made out to Eugene Phillips of Los Angeles. So you see, I was right. We hadn't done any business with Phillips, only indirectly.
Paula, what was the bill of sale for?
A shipment of iridium, whatever that is.
Iridium? Did you say iridium?
Exactly. You mentioned at the time that this fellow Reynolds had made some kind of deal in Palm Springs the night before, and then he stopped in your office early in the morning on his way north to have it notarized, and...
Wait a minute. George Reynolds. That was about 6 months ago, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Goodbye, Paul, and thanks.
Hey, where are you going?
To rent a car and call on a widow. I've got to talk to you, Mrs. Phillips.
You please go away. I want to be left alone.
Please, I found out why your husband wanted me. It was in connection with a bill of sale.
Come in.
What do you know about George Reynolds?
George Reynolds? Why, that's the man my husband claimed sold him the iridium.
And what did Reynolds claim?
Reynolds disappeared. About 2 months ago, my husband grew suspicious that something was wrong. Since then, he tried in every way to locate Reynolds, but he could find no trace of him.
I don't get it. Mr. Phillips could have proved the legitimacy of the transaction by showing the bill of sale he got from Reynolds.
Then there was a bill of sale.
That's right.
My husband swore there was. But at the time of his arrest, he couldn't find it. It was mysteriously missing.
Then if Mr. Phillips did have proof, George Reynolds would have faced the prison term.
Eugene was convinced Reynolds had stolen the bill of sale. He was the only one who had reason to eliminate any evidence of the transaction.
What do you mean, eliminate any evidence?
Well, why, the bill of sale, the canceled check. My husband could show no proof of his innocence.
Oh, thanks, Mrs. Phillips. Thanks a lot. You've been very helpful. A lot more helpful than you were on my first visit.
If you'd only come sooner, Mr. Bigelow. My husband might be alive today.
Yes, I know. But what puzzles me, Mrs. Phillips, is that you haven't even asked me how I knew there was a bill of sale.
Mr. Halliday isn't in, Mr. Bigelow. He should be back shortly.
I think you're the one who can help me, Miss Foster. Phillips tried to reach someone else before he called me, didn't he?
Why don't you ask Mr. Halliday?
Obviously, Halliday wasn't here yesterday, or he wouldn't have had to learn from you that Phillips called me, and you're the logical person to know who else Phillips called.
I don't believe that's any of your business, Mr. Bigelow.
Don't think you're revealing anything confidential, Miss Foster. I know that he was trying to reach someone else. Mrs. Phillips told me.
You're bluffing, Mr. Bigelow. I don't know what you're after, but you're trying to trick me. Mrs. Phillips didn't tell you a thing.
How do you know that?
Well, Mrs. Phillips knows nothing about it.
She doesn't? Why wouldn't she know about it? Wait a minute. I was talking about George Reynolds. Who did you think I meant? Just who is it that Mrs. Phillips doesn't know about?
I told you before, it's none of your business. And take your hands off me.
All right, I'm going to give it to you straight. The way things add up to me, Phillips was murdered.
Murdered? I don't believe you. You're lying.
He called me because he needed me to clear him. Phillips was innocent, and innocent men don't have to jump out of windows. Just who are you trying to protect, Miss Foster? Why are you so afraid to tell the truth?
I'm not protecting anybody.
Now, listen to me. This thing is going to explode wide open. If you don't have anything to worry about, why don't you talk? Or maybe you are mixed up in it.
Oh, no.
Come on.
Mr. Phillips called Marla Rakubian. He went to see her yesterday morning.
Who is Marla Rakubian?
She's a model. She and Mr. Phillips were once quite friendly, but he hadn't been seeing her for some time. For the last couple of months, he'd been trying to locate her and finally learned where she lived yesterday. When he returned from seeing her, he was terribly upset and excited. That was when he had me put through the calls for you. When he couldn't reach you, we went home. That was the last time that I saw him alive.
Give me Marla Rakubian's address.
445 South Weatherly Drive. I don't think that Mr. Phillips realized that I was aware of his friendship with Marla Rakubian. And out of respect to him, I never intended to tell anyone. But I had no idea that she had anything to do with the trouble he was in.
I admire your discretion. You must be pretty friendly with Stanley Phillips, Miss Foster.
What?
Hit home, didn't I? Stanley knew how desperately his brother tried to reach me. Yet he wasn't even here at the time. Now you seem to know all about what happened in Mrs. Phillips' apartment. Miss Rakubian?
Yes. Where are you going?
Inside.
What do you want? Get out of my hotel room and I'll call the police.
Go ahead, call them. That's nice luggage. Taking a trip?
That's right. I'm going away for the weekend.
Well, look what's here on the dresser. Steamship tickets. Sailing for Buenos Aires tomorrow. Oh, quite a weekend.
Give them to me. I'll send you a postcard. Now get out of here.
Who are you going with, George Reynolds?
I never heard of him.
I suppose you've never heard of Eugene Phillips either.
Just who are you? What do you want?
Never mind who I am. Where's Reynolds?
I told you I don't know him. Now, will you get out of here and leave me alone?
What's the matter? Did you forget to pack this picture?
Keep your hands off.
So, you never heard of him. Don't try to tell me that the face in the picture isn't Reynolds, because that's the man who came to my office.
If you think you can scare me, you're crazy.
Look, honey, maybe you could get away with that when Phillips came here yesterday looking for Reynolds. But you're in a different spot now, because after he talked to you, Phillips got pushed out of a 6-story window.
Pushed?
Don't act wide-eyed with me. Your playmate Reynolds murdered Phillips, then went up to San Francisco to get me. Because I could have proved that he sold Phillips that iridium, and the suicide would have blown wide open for investigation. And you're mixed up in it right up to your pretty little neck.
Let go of me. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not mixed up in anything.
I'll decide that. Now, let's open your trunk.
I don't have a key.
I'll break it open if you don't find it in a hurry.
All right. I'll get it. Now throw that picture on the bed and turn around. And keep your hands up.
Okay, sister.
And don't get any ideas, because I'm not afraid to use this. Where do you keep your wallet?
My back pocket.
Lie and I'll blow your head off. Take it out.
Yeah.
Drop it.
Okay.
Frank Bigelow, Lancashire Hotel. That's what I was looking for.
Here's something you're not looking for. Sorry if I stepped on your toes. That's better. Now, where's Reynolds?
I don't know.
Phillips came here yesterday looking for Reynolds, didn't he?
Yes. All I could tell him is what I'm telling you. I haven't seen him for months.
Hand me that picture. Interesting how mighty careful you are of the picture of a man you haven't seen in months. Kamala, all my love, Ray. What's the Ray stand for?
It was a pet name. Do you mind?
All sounds very cozy, Miss Rakubian. Reynolds steals iridium, sells it to Phillips, then disappears. Phillips is left holding the bag. Without a certain notarized paper, he can't prove his innocence. So the paper conveniently disappears.
Phillips made the deal because he wanted to.
Yeah. I'll bet you weren't above using what it took to convince him that he wanted it.
If I were a man, I'd punch your dirty face in.
You know, I think you would at that. The angrier you get, the more beautiful you get. I'll just take this picture with me. Oh, almost forgot. Here's your ticket, Miss Rakubian. And don't be surprised if I'm at the boat to see you off. From the photographer who took the picture, I learned that George Reynolds was really Raymond Rakubian, Marla's husband. I wanted to talk with her before she left the boat, so I... Hey! Using Marla's gun, I sent a slug through the abandoned warehouse window, driving him back, and I ran across the street. The warehouse was quiet as the death that lurked there. No one was visible. So I inched my way forward and... My heart did nip-ups. He had dropped the barrel from above. I started up the metal catwalk to the shadowy top. My stomach was paining me and my heart bruising my ribs.
Suddenly, in a minute, an hour. With a heavy jolt, you go suddenly, a minute, an hour.
That's when I stopped. As I lay on the floor, writhing in pain, I knew that this was it. I was dying. My murderer had left. I had not gotten one glimpse. When I was able to walk, I found a book of matches near the doorway, labeled The Fisherman, San Francisco. Whoever had given me luminous poison wasn't satisfied. I wasn't dying fast enough. Finally, I made it back to my hotel room. Gratefully, I opened the door.
Welcome home, Bingler. You're late. Close the door. Hand over that picture.
Marla didn't lose...
Shut up! And here's another one. Look at you. You can't take it. Soft in the belly.
If you hit me again with that gun, I'll kick your face in.
Get it. The hotel clerk might know you're in.
Hello?
Hey, why'd you hang up on me a while ago? I've been trying to get you for the last 2 hours.
I'm sorry I was in a hurry.
Well, don't be in such a hurry this time. McGowan was in, hollering his head off because you haven't gone over his books.
Tell McGowan to get another auditor.
You're drunk.
Paula, how much we got in the bank?
About $2,500.
Draw it out tomorrow. You know that fur coat you always wanted? Buy it.
You are drunk. Don't tell me that 2 days away from me can affect you this way.
Cut it short.
Paula,
Yes?
I never should have left you. I just didn't realize how much I was in love with you. But I know it now.
Oh, Frank. Frank, darling, I love you, too. So very much. Come home, please. I miss you terribly.
I said cut it short.
Please, come home soon.
That ends the call. Walk in front of me, Bingler, and keep your mouth shut, or I'll blow the back of your skull out.
Did you get the picture, Chester?
Don't I always get what Mr. Majak sends me after, Marla?
Majak?
That's right. I'm the dealer who bought the iridium from Phillips.
Now I get it. You stole the iridium, you sold it to Phillips, then you bought it from him. His bill of sale disappears, you now legally own the iridium, and he goes up the river.
Where do you fit into this, Bigelow?
I'm looking for Raymond Rakubian.
Oh, you can't expect me to believe that. You forced your way into my business, and I must know why.
My only reason is Rakubian. He's murdered me.
Stop being cute. Oh! I'd like working you over in the belly. Oh!
You asked for it, Chester!
You can't do that to Chester. I'm going to blow your guts out. Chester! Look at him. He's so scared of Chester. He'll talk now.
Leave him alone, Chester. He's not scared. You can tell it by his eyes.
Keep him away from me, Majak. If he comes near me again, he'll have to use that gun.
Get out, Chester.
Why don't you let Chester work on him, Majak?
Get out, both of you. Come here, Bigelow. I want to show you something. Read it.
Death certificate. Raymond Rakubian.
Yes. He was my nephew. He died 5 months ago. He couldn't possibly have tried to kill you.
Well, I guess that leaves me where I was at the beginning. Nowhere.
Was there really an attempt made on your life, Bigelow?
This afternoon, somebody tried to get me again.
Until now, I had no reason to kill you.
Did Phillips demand a notarized bill of sale?
Naturally.
Why did you have Rakubian get a legitimate notarization?
Iridium is a very precious metal. I had to anticipate the possibility of it being traced. With a legitimate bill of sale, the police would have reached a dead end, because George Reynolds could never have been found. I'm afraid that you've been sidetracked, Bigelow. But you and I have a problem. Now that you know that it's someone else you want, I'm afraid it's too late for you to do anything about it. Unfortunately, you've learned too much about me.
Chester! Suppose I told you I'm not concerned with your part in this, that I wouldn't reveal what I know. Suppose I proved to you that I only want to find the person who tried to kill me and that I won't cause you any trouble.
I'm a very practical man, Bigelow. This could cost me my freedom.
Chester! Look, Majak, please!
I'm sorry, Bigelow. I never take chances with my freedom. Chester, take him for a ride.
You tried to make a boob out of me in front of Majak. You shouldn't have done that, Bingler. I don't like that. I'm going to enjoy this. I've done jobs like this before. I knocked off guys I could like, but I don't like you, Bingler. You ain't scared yet, are you? But you'll be scared. Good and scared. I think I'll give it to you in the belly. You don't like it in the belly.
As Chester kept giving me the business, I thought
hotel room.
Something about
it's like
death.
Eating jelly.
Everything
Soft,
you believed was
warm
ugly
jelly.
suddenly becomes beautiful.
We used to have a rhyme about that.
It was bad enough to die in the glory of a battlefield, but to have died in vain, to have been murdered innocently. I only wanted one thing, to breathe long enough to get the person who had stolen my life, and my chance came at a signal change. As Chester pressed his foot on the brake, I jammed mine down on his. As his head hit the windshield, I leaped from his car and ran. Paula, what are you doing here?
I had to see you.
You shouldn't have come, Paula. You shouldn't have.
Oh, look at you, Frank. You're a sight. Your clothes look as if you slept in them. Are you ill?
No, I'm all right.
You are ill. You're feverish.
I'm all right, Paula.
You're lying. And you're in trouble. Right after I spoke to you, I got a call from the San Francisco police. It was a homicide detective. Oh, what is it, Frank? If you're in any kind of trouble, you certainly can trust me.
I'm not in any trouble with the police, Paula. I promise you that. But you can't stay here. You've got to go back to Banning right away.
No, Frank, I won't go. I won't. I'm staying here with you.
Please, Paula, please believe me. It's best that you go back.
Why? What's this all about? You're in a jam, aren't you? A bad jam. What have you got to do with this Phillips and Reynolds?
Phillips was murdered.
What's that got to do with you? All you did was notarize a paper. You've notarized hundreds of papers.
That's right. All I did was notarize one little paper. One little paper out of 100.
Oh, you frighten me, Frank. You don't even act like yourself. I know you're keeping something from me, that something is terribly wrong, that you're in serious trouble.
Don't be frightened, Paula. Don't ever be frightened of anything. Promise me that.
I love you so much, darling. More than you seem to be able to understand. I never really knew happiness until I loved you. Losing you would have meant losing everything. There would have been nothing left.
Don't, Paula. Please don't.
No. I'm afraid again. I feel so helpless. You're leaving me out of something. Tell me, Frank, what is it? Just give me a chance, please. You do love me, don't you, Frank?
Yes, Paula. I was uncertain before. Blind to what I had. But I know it now. Can you understand that, Paula?
Yes, darling. I understand.
A man can be that way. Something has to happen to him. It can be a very little thing or a big thing, but it can make him realize what someone really means to him. Paula, I love you more than I ever thought it possible for me to love anyone.
Then why won't you let me help you?
Because you can't help me. Because there's nothing you can do. Please go home, Paula, please.
All right, Frank.
Paula.
Yes?
Is that a new outfit you're wearing?
Yes.
You look wonderful in it.
Frank!
Goodbye, Paula.
Mr. Bigelow, how did you know where I lived?
You're listed in the phone book, Miss Foster.
Did you see Marla Rakubian? Did you learn anything?
Stop playing naive. It won't work anymore. I fell for it once, went off on a wild goose chase.
What do you mean? I only told you what you wanted to know.
Sure, just enough to sidetrack me so I wouldn't find out that Stanley was the one I wanted. You acted so shocked when I told you that Phillips was murdered.
Stanley? Oh, no.
Why don't you stop it, Miss Foster? You and Stanley have been together in this thing from the beginning. Now get on that phone. Tell him to get over here in a hurry.
What are you going to do?
What was Stanley going to do when he used me as a clay pigeon today near the factory?
You've been sidetracked, all right, Bigelow.
Oh, Stanley.
But it was a poor, bereaved little widow who did it.
What's wrong with you?
My stomach.
Why did you try to give it to me?
Here, look at this letter. Miss Foster found it this afternoon. It was in my brother's desk in the office. It's postmarked 2 years ago. It isn't the kind of a letter a married woman gets from a casual friend. And I know my brother wasn't aware that his wife and Holiday were so well acquainted when he hired him.
Where did he have dinner?
At Mrs. Phillips' apartment. Halliday was there, too. Stanley confronted them with the contents of this letter.
Did he have anything to drink?
Yes. Why?
How long ago?
About half an hour ago. Just before I left.
Miss Foster, call the emergency hospital. Get an ambulance over here right away.
Ambulance?
Have them prepare a stomach wash. Tell them it's luminous poison. If you hurry, you may still save his life. I found found George Reynolds, Mrs. Phillips. He's been dead 5 months.
Then he didn't steal the bill of sale.
No, but you could have stolen it.
How dare you make such an accusation?
It wouldn't be too difficult for a wife to get her husband close enough to a balcony.
I must ask you to leave.
You knew who I was when I came to see you, didn't you, Mrs. Phillips? But you were surprised to see me alive, weren't you? But I'm not alive. Yes, I can breathe, I can move, I can stand here and talk to you right now. But at any moment it can end. Do you understand, Mrs. Phillips? I look like I'm alive, but I did take the poison. Nothing can save me.
What do you want with me?
If I kill you, what do I have to fear now?
No!
What could anyone do to me that hasn't been done already?
No, listen to me. You've got to give me a chance.
I didn't get a chance.
It was Halliday, I swear it. Yes, I took the bill of sale. Halliday planned it so that Eugene would go to jail. I didn't know until today he killed Eugene.
Halliday couldn't have gotten away with it. Your husband knew about the two of you. He found a letter.
He found it only yesterday. He accused Halliday. They fought. Halliday pushed him over the balcony.
Then why me? Why me?
He learned about the phone calls after he killed Eugene. He thought Eugene had spoken to you, that you knew enough to involve him. He was shocked to see you still alive, and he followed you and tried to shoot you. He knew he had to finish you before you got him.
Where's Halliday now?
He's at the office. He's flying out of the country tonight. I don't know where he's going yet. He wants me to join him.
Come on with me.
No. What are you going to do to me?
You're going into this closet. You're not going to want him this time. I ought to kill you, but I'll leave you for the police instead. As I stepped into the street, a jagged pain stabbed me, doubling me over. When I could straighten up, I saw Chester waiting in the shadows.
Keep running, Bigelow. I'll get you. I won't shoot you in the back. You're going to get it in the belly.
There was a drugstore just ahead. I rushed into it and prayed. I screamed at fate that had given me the name of my murderer and was now destroying me before my job was done.
It takes longer when you get it in the belly. It's nice and slow. That's the way I want you to go, Bingler. Nice and slow. Here it comes.
A heavy bottle, thrown by a Casper milquetoast with the courage of a lion, had caught Chester square in the head. Once again, I had no time to wait for the police. I had one more date to fill.
Huh? What are you doing here?
Where did you think you were going, Halliday?
Get out before I throw you out.
You really fright me, Halliday. You're awfully nervous. Let me light your cigarette.
Get out!
I said I was going to light your cigarette with these matches. Matter of fact, they're yours. I picked them up in an abandoned factory. Look at the cover. The Fisherman. Crown Prince of Jive, San Francisco. In a joint like that, who would notice a customer at the bar slipping a little luminous poison into another man's drink? And who there would care, except the murdered man?
I'll finish the job now, Bigelow.
You're tricky, Halliday, plenty tricky. Now stop sneaking your hand towards that gun in your pocket. Reach in and grab it like a man, because if you don't, I'll shoot you first. Well, that's it, Captain. All of it. Ironical, isn't it? I guess this is the first case you've ever known where a man killed his own murderer.
Bigelow, drink this.
Thanks,
Bigelow! He's dead, Captain. Poor devil. Call the morgue, O'Banion.
How shall I make out the report on him?
We better make it D.O.A. Dead on arrival.
Thank you, Edmund O'Brien and Peggy Castle, for a most exciting performance. Our stars will return in just a moment. Next week, the Screen Directors Playhouse will bring you a classic in comedy. For the first time on the air, we present Lady Takes a Chance. Our stars, Joan Caulfield and John Lund. And our guest screen director next week is William Sighter. Now, here again are tonight's stars, Edmund O'Brien and Peggy Castle.
Peggy Castle.
Yes, Eddie.
I've thought I'd like to get off my chest, Peggy, if you don't mind.
Not a bit. Go on.
Thanks. I've always felt that a director was the key in the making of a good motion picture.
Oh, how right you are.
Well, I'm glad you agree, because it's my opinion that Rudy Mattei, as the director of D.O.A., unlocked the pages of the script with complete understanding and brilliance. His artistry of lighting and extraordinary camera angles and his sureness and understanding of movement. Well, Peggy, Rudy Mattei is just great.
So are you, Eddie O'Brien and Peggy Castle. I thought your performance tonight were superb.
Well, Frank McDonald. Thanks, Frank. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present one of Hollywood's outstanding directors, Mr. Frank McDonald.
Thank you. Well, Eddie and Peggy, I'm here to say thanks tonight for Rudy Mattei, who is in Europe completing a motion picture. For the Screen Directors Playhouse, I'd like to extend an invitation to both of you to return as often as you can. Good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
D.O.A. was presented through the courtesy of Cardinal Productions, and Edmund O'Brien may soon be seen starring in the Paramount production Warpath. Peggy Castle will soon be seen in The Prince Who Was a Thief, a Universal International Technicolor production, co-starring Tony Curtis and Piper Laurie. Piano improvisations on tonight's program were by John Rary. Screen Directors Playhouse is produced under the supervision of Howard Wiley and directed by Bill Karn. This is Jimmy Wallington speaking and inviting you to listen again next Thursday when Screen Directors Playhouse presents for the first time on the air Lady Takes a Chance, starring Joan Caulfield and John Lund, with screen director William Sider.
Tomorrow, you too can live the life of Riley on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, the one thing I found, I guess, somewhat unfortunate about this adaptation was the musical score. And maybe it was just me, it just did not work well for me. Particularly compared to the original movie. This is one I hope, listening to this, gives you this appetite to actually see the film. Because there's a lot of... They did a good job on the radio play, other than I thought the music. But the film had so many elements that are just phenomenal. So if you are interested in seeing the film, it is in our video theater archives, or it's in the public domain. The movie is, so it can be purchased from a wide variety of different sources. One little coincidence here is they mentioned that John Lund would be starring in the next Screen Directors Playhouse, and of course John Lund would also be the actor who would succeed Edmund O'Brien in the role of Johnny Dollar. But I've enjoyed bringing this to you. It's a fantastic script and just a amazing story. I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you got a comment, go ahead and send it to me. box13@greatdetectives.net. Be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.